Welcome to Tales from SYL Ranch Live, where everyone is entitled to my opinion, and I'm Bill Stone. Tonight on Tales from SYL Ranch, we have the usual weekly Lancaster County, Nebraska virus statistics for where I live. We'll have a bit of a call-in and interview with my good friend and cryptocurrency expert, J. Marshall Presnell. We will have a response to YouTube reactors, the Gallifrey Girls, on their recent reaction to Star Trek, the original series episode, The City on the Edge of Forever. We will have some Star Trek news, generally bad. We'll have the weekly woke report, anything else I can think of, and anything else that you want to talk about. Now, this is, of course, a live stream, so you are free to chat with me about anything that you want to. You can ask me any question, whether it's personal, political, well, not personal, political, social, the virus whose name I can't mention without risking the video being banned, United States Civil War II, or even things pertaining to science fiction, fantasy, horror, superheroes, and other related genres. I'm happy to answer each and every question in as much detail and as truthfully as I can. There are, of course, some personal subjects that I won't discuss, but anything else is pretty much fair game. I'll get to as many of my viewers as I can with the understanding that I don't really want my stream to go much longer than 3 hours, partly because it becomes less accessible to people who are watching it on demand, and partly because I'm an old man and my lower back arthritis starts to hurt after 3 or so hours in this chair. Now, ordinarily, I might give some call-in instructions about how you can call into the show, but I'm trying to stream to YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch simultaneously, and I also have that interview with cryptocurrency expert J. Marshall Presnell that's likely to take up much of the show, or at least a chunk of it. So I think I'm kind of booked for tonight. Now, I have, of course, as I've been the last few weeks, taken down the chat windows that were starting to really fill this thing up. So if you chat with me on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitch, I will call out you, I will call out the service you're on, and I'll call out whatever question you're asking before I answer it. So while we wait for a few people to trickle in here, we will answer the question that nobody asked. What are the virus statistics this week for Lancaster County in which I live? As always, I source these things. I never give you data without a source. You can find it, if you want to, in the description box. It'll appear there on Twitch after I'm done, since I can't put it in there beforehand. A few of my statistics are not the same as Lincoln Lancaster County Health Department, and that's because I'm using a more accurate count of the county population. The statistics, as always, the estimated Lancaster County population at present is 324,216. Total number of deaths in Lancaster County remains static this week at 232, same as last week. For comparison, as always, the number of people who died of heart disease in 2019 is 485, which means we have a horrifying heart disease pandemic here. It also means that over about almost a year and a half of the pandemic, the number of people who died of the virus in this county remains less than half the number of those who died of heart disease in only 1 year in 2019. Over on YouTube, hi Dalton Brazier, you're a libertarian, so you're all in for private currency. Just can't understand how crypto can be anything more than a Ponzi scheme type of investment. So you go into that would be great. Well, I'll talk to Marshall about that, yes. Also, generally point you in the direction of a very, very mind-blowing, very difficult for me to follow, frankly. I could follow it. Thing that I did with him a number of weeks ago. Again, I'll put the link to that in my description box. I'd forgotten to. Total Lancaster County confirmed cases is up to 31,030, which is up. Let's see if I can get this right. Sorry, I have a very poor man's teleprompter, which is up 215 from last week. That continues a downward trend of increases. Yes, we're getting more, but it peaked quite a long time to go. Marshall says he'd love to go into that. That's a good thing to go into. Statistically, this remains roughly the same increase as last week. It's just, flattening out. Eventually, it'll go down to zero. The number of positive cases that are classified as recovered is 228,116, which is up 746 from last week. Now, I don't quite know exactly what this classification means, but given that there are only 232 deaths, I guess that leaves 14 people who are in some kind of Schrodinger's cat-style limbo as both dead and not dead simultaneously. The total number of completed vaccinations is up to 119,922, which is up 5,625 from last week. This means the percentage of the county that has been vaccinated is up to 36.988%, which is up 2.121% from last week. Given our other statistics, as has been the case for weeks, ever since the vaccine started, it has yet to have the slightest effect. Deaths as a percentage of confirmed cases is at 0.748%, which is down 0.005% from last week, statistically identical for months now. Deaths as a percentage of population remains, as last week, at 0.0716%. Since there were no additional deaths this last week, and since our population remained roughly static, no additional changes there, and it is statistically totally identical since the entire thing started. So I'm going to get to Marshall pretty directly. Marshall's got places to be and things to go, so later on this evening. So I don't want to keep him around too terribly long. But I am going to put him on pretty directly. Oops, I better get the that's the right one. Yeah. Oops, sorry, it's the wrong one. Where the hell is the right one? Okay, this is the right one to put in this here. So I'm going to put him on directly. If you're not familiar, Marshall's a very old friend of mine. I've known him for, I guess, in excess of about 30 years now. If you watched last week's stream and you heard me talking about this guy that we both know, who was one of the most disruptive individuals in Star Trek fandom ever. I mean, ever, that he and I dealt with for decades. Marshall and I go back to roughly the same guy when that guy started out. Marshall became known in those forums, one of which he moderated, that this guy was so disruptive in. He was known as the Echo Magatu. If you look at my end credits, you will discover that I give a special thanks to the Magatu. That's partly because of Marshall, who has been extraordinarily helpful with me on this show. He has, in fact, sometimes sort of served as a producer for me, has given me just a ton of really, invaluable technical help. Just the call that we're going to get with him tonight is largely the result of he and I screwing around with things and him screwing around with it more in order to make it work. Very intelligent guy. He's been in IT longer than I have and has done some things that I have never done, heavily into artificial intelligence and things like that, and is, near as I can tell, probably one of, if not the world's expert on cryptocurrency in general. He might not say that, but I would, because I know where Joe Average is operating with respect to knowledge. I know where I'm operating at with respect to knowledge, and he is way beyond me. Very intelligent guy. I think probably, Albert Einstein, Stephen Hawking could definitely give him a run for his money. But he is one of those guys who's really, really intelligent, value all of his things that he's ever done or ever said. So that said, let me see if I can give Marshall a call on Skype. If I can find it. There we go. So, one ringy dingy. Yikes, that's bad. Two ringy dingies. Hey, Marshall.
How you doing, Bill?
I'm doing fine. How are you tonight, Marshall?
I am conscious, self-contained, and almost lifelike.
You are here in this space-time continuum. That's always a good thing.
Yeah, I take a vacation here from time to time.
Well, I know you've done the difficult thing, which is getting off of social media. I've pretty much gotten off of it altogether, near as I can tell. And that's harder than you think, by the way, viewers. Social media creates something of an addiction, a physical addiction to dopamine. Getting off of it actually is harder than most people think. So, yay for you.
Harder than nicotine.
Is it?
Yes.
Really? Well,
yes.
I guess I haven't been off of it long enough to know. I guess I try to keep it as little as possible and kind of try to treat it as a marketing platform. I probably am still addicted as well. But worse than nicotine. Wow, I wouldn't have thought that.
Well, I'm just going on personal experience there. I'm not citing any studies or anything like that.
Right. No, I
But
figured. I don't know if there are
yeah,
any studies on this.
well,
So,
we possibly
get
possibly could be.
getting off into there's a good thought for my one kid who's getting her PhD. Do something, study on that. I think she's doing other things, but anyway, let's get off into cryptocurrency just a little bit. By the way, this is a picture, of course, of Marshall. The other reason that I credit the Mugatu as a special thanks is not only to Marshall, but also because this is my first memory. I've been with Star Trek for so long that this is actually my very first memory is of the Mugatu in that episode of Private Little War. So
I've got to turn the stream back on just to see what you put up here.
oh. I
Wait.
mentioned to Marshall about the concept of putting up his picture, and he didn't really want it to, probably for security reasons that are perfectly valid. But figured we'll put up a Mugatu.
What a handsome devil.
So let's.
I wish I looked half that good. So
Well, I've seen your actual picture, and I think you're right.
thanks.
Getting to
I think.
Dalton's question here about how crypto can be something more than a Ponzi scheme. I'll have you know, viewers, Marshall as well, I think he already knows. As a result of the last stream that I had in which I had Marshall on, I changed my tune about cryptocurrency. If you go to my website now, sylranch.tv/donate, link in my description boxes, you will discover a number of different ways, but at the bottom, I have every cryptocurrency that is traded by Coinbase, which is what I use. You can send me anything in about 15, 20 different cryptocurrencies. Feel free.
You've gone overboard, Bill.
I never know.
Which is fine.
It's future proofing for me. I never know what's going to be the next big one.
I can tell you that.
I know you've talked about Ethereum. Are you still of that opinion?
More so than before. But let's get back to Dalton's question.
Yes.
Okay, Ponzi scheme.
How is
That
crypto
means
something
that-
other than a Ponzi scheme?
Okay, Ponzi scheme is where the people coming in pay for basically the payouts for the people who came in before. Technically speaking, any kind of asset trading system is that, if it's appreciating. If it's depreciating, it's stupid to invest. But I will take a Ponzi scheme with well-defined rules over a system where nothing backs it up other than the good faith of bureaucrats who always insist on inflating the currency.
Right.
Especially when they stop printing the money statistics.
Yeah. As they've done
Bitcoin,
now.
yes.
And we can
Since,
we can feel
February
that
of this year.
we can feel that inflation. I go, to anywhere, a store and stuff, and around here they'll say, "Well, how are things going?" Or "What's up?" What's up is a big one, and I will always just spit out, "Oh, gas prices." Let's say this is my standard answer: the sky, the ceiling, gas prices, grocery prices, and those last two now they're going, "Oh yeah, that's for sure." That's where you're seeing inflation.
Correct. And anytime the government stops printing statistics, they're hiding something.
Right.
That has been shown true literally for centuries.
Yeah.
The Romans actually stopped publishing their money statistics when they started inflating the currency. The Germans did the same thing. The Weimar Republic, same thing. Venezuela, same thing. We are following in well-tread footsteps, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
They did
And
keep
the
it
basic reason
active
that they
long
have to
enough.
hide it is now we've got a public debt that exceeds the GDP. Just complete insanity. And in order to,
very true.
to monetize some of that debt, they're having to do the inflation. And then we feel it in
And-
our pocketbooks.
So basically, here's your choice. You can go into a monetary system that has a better chance of preserving your wealth and your value, that is controlled by predetermined algorithms generated by consensus among people who have to do work in order to generate that consensus, or you can count on the Fed. Pick.
Yeah. And that was another thing we talked about last time, is that one of the biggest things about cryptocurrency is it is essentially inflation proof.
Some of them are, some of them are not. It's important that, and that's one of the things that I did want to clarify. I did not want to put all cryptocurrency coins into the same big basket of, oh my, this is really good. There are over 9,000. In fact, let me see if I can find the number. As of this very moment, there are a lot. Yeah. 9,615 cryptos listed on coinmarketcap.com, with a total market cap of $2.377 trillion.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah, I've got 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38.
If you count to 9,000, I'm leaving.
44. It's about 60 listed on my homepage, on my donate page, with a big thing in bold font that says Ethereum is preferred, and Ethereum is the very first one.
I would actually say Bitcoin should be preferred. And I'll get into the reason. Yeah, I'll get into the reasons why as well.
Feel free. You mentioned last week, who was it, had said something about, crypto, and you saying you had a lot of updates and things you could talk about that. Feel free to jump into any of that, because updates are good.
Yeah. Well, the biggest thing I wanted to get across right now is, if you had any amount of money, and I mean any amount of money, in Bitcoin or Ethereum a year ago, you're up at least 6 times.
Yeah.
In any amount. And if you got in before that, you're up more than six times. It's 6 times for Bitcoin, 12 times for Ethereum, or 10 times for Ethereum. I'm sorry. These things are moving up with more adoption.
Yeah.
And I discovered something new in crypto as of this week, and this actually blew my mind. This is actually a science experiment as well. There are very good financial reasons or value preservation reasons to get into crypto. But Bill, you're familiar with what's called the network effect.
Yeah.
Right? Where, if you are hooked up with 10 people and they're hooked up with 10 people, then you're hooked up with 100 people.
Right.
And then if they're hooked up with 10 people, it goes to 1,000, and then it goes to 10,000, and it goes to 100,000.
Essentially the way Twitter works.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And oddly enough, that's part of this very interesting experiment. On Twitter and TikTok. Mm-hmm. Yes, I know, TikTok. And Instagram. They have a very high network fan out. Mm-hmm. So one person has 370 people, and those 370 people have over 100 each that are following them. So the network effect on these particular platforms are very high, because followers is the name of the game.
Right.
And you get people on there who do the stupidest things. Now, I'm not talking about, putting videos about sliding on the slip and slide, or, falling into a wall. Mm-hmm. I'm talking about pumping cryptocurrencies.
Yeah.
And there is this complete crap coin called Doge.
Yeah, I've seen that recently, and that's being pushed very heavily on Twitter, especially. I'm starting to see sponsored ads for that.
Yeah. There's another effect called unit affinity, or unit bias. And that is to value something for how much it costs, what the price is. Mm-hmm. That seems fair, right? Well,
sort of.
with assets, and cryptocurrency should really be called crypto assets or digital assets.
Yeah.
But with assets, you have to look at how many of those assets are out there and the price, and multiply them together to get market capitalization.
I see.
So that's what you're really buying, is the market cap. And for example, the market cap of Bitcoin right now is $1.052 trillion.
Right.
And in the last week or so, Dogecoin, and I never believed in a million years I would be saying these words, has risen to number 4
Really?
for market. 74,323,000,000, 4,971.
That one's barely even been around very long, isn't it?
No, it's been around a while, but it was created as a joke.
Yeah, well,
It
Doge,
does
yeah.
nothing. I mean, it does nothing.
Right.
It doesn't have its own protocol. It shares the Bitcoin protocol. It doesn't provide any utility or facility for the user. It's not really considered stable enough to be a fungible asset. So you can't buy and sell with it that well.
Right.
There's really no development going on to it. It has no special things involved in the protocol. It is a joke. And everybody says, well, should I invest in Dogecoin? And I say unequivocally, even now, no.
Right.
Because there's nothing to continue the adoption once people figure it out.
Yeah.
And
if you don't have a certain level of active development and things like that behind it, yeah.
Yeah.
It just obsoletes itself.
Yeah, but it goes and pumps 700%, It's like, what? And it's purely because of network effect.
Right.
And also because it's traded on Robinhood, and it is the cheapest in terms of dollar cost on Robinhood.
Wow.
Interesting, because people will go, they have unit bias for the cheaper thing if they can get it, and they think it has the same potential. Right. Well, that's the mistake, is it does not have the same potential, and you'll understand why I'm saying that so definitively in just a couple of minutes.
Okay.
So this interesting science experiment of Dogecoin is showing us just how strong network effect is.
Right. Yeah.
Now, realize that the 3 coins above it, you've probably heard of them. Bitcoin, number 1. Ethereum, number 2. And Binance Coin, number 3.
That one I don't think I've heard of.
Yeah, Binance Coin has a market cap of 96 billion. Ethereum has 408 billion, and Bitcoin has 1.052 trillion.
Well, I'll have to find Binance Coin then.
That is a very good coin, a very, very powerful coin. Right under Dogecoin is another coin that's getting some network effect called XRP, or Ripple. It's in the middle of a massive lawsuit with the government, and it looks like they're going to win. When they win, it's going to go even higher than it is now.
Right.
Its market cap is $1 billion below Dogecoin. So,
numbers like that just stagger my imagination.
XRP actually has value for a reason that will be made clear in a moment.
Okay.
But the important thing is Bitcoin is not just this cool name for a coin. Realize there's no physical coin there. It's a virtual coin. Bitcoin is the name of the coin. It's the name of the protocol, and it's the name of the blockchain.
Right.
Every crypto in existence has these 3 things. You have the name, the protocol, and the blockchain. It basically owns the whole blockchain that is Bitcoin. And that is a proof of work blockchain. You have to solve really complicated math problems in order to add a block to the chain to make the transactions go through.
Which is why if you're mining Bitcoin now, the energy required to do it is orders of magnitude much larger than it was, say, 10 years ago.
Yes. It roughly doubles every, I think it's 400,000 blocks, maybe 200,000 blocks. I can't remember the exact number. But every time a block gets added, it has a certain difficulty. And after a certain amount of blocks, the difficulty doubles. Okay, that is what's called proof of work. Ethereum, which is the number 2 and the one I actually prefer for investing, you'll begin to get some very interesting vibes here. Bitcoin is for value store, wealth preservation.
Okay.
Ethereum is for investing. Now, why do I say that? Well, Ethereum, it has a name, Ethereum. It has a coin, Ether, and it has a blockchain, the Ethereum blockchain.
Okay.
Sounds kind of normal, just like Bitcoin, right?
Right, yeah.
Binance has the same three, but you get down to other cryptocurrencies, and they will actually forego creating their own blockchain, but they'll use, and it's usually Ethereum or Binance. Some use
okay,
Polkadot.
they'll use their blockchain.
Yeah, but some use one called Polkadot, called Dot. Other ones will use Cardano. Others will use Solana. I don't know what all the name bull is, but they are sitting on the Ethereum blockchain. No, they are not sitting on the Ethereum blockchain. They have their own blockchain.
Okay.
But there's several big blockchains that serve different purposes. Ethereum has one thing that is amazing, and in order to understand that, you have to understand that Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies is not the advent of the internet.
Okay.
If you invested in the internet, there was a lot of assumptions that were there. Number one, computers could talk to each other. Okay, that's cool. Number two, a lot of people would have computers. Okay, that's cool. Number three, all of these computers could talk to each other. And Bill, you understand the difficulty of that. A lot of people wouldn't, because we had to go through, Ethernet, TCP/IP, a token ring,
There was,
we had different
for those who don't know, there were at one time multiple different protocols, multiple different rules of how these various computers could communicate with each other. And it ultimately went down to TCP/IP. But before that, there were a lot of other ones, and some of my job was converting from one to TCP/IP.
And it was usually TCP/IP over Ethernet.
Yes, right.
So there was a physical layer and a logical layer, very much like there was a physical layer to Bitcoin, which is the protocol. I'm sorry, the blockchain, and the protocol, which would be like TCP.
Okay.
So a lot of people are saying this is very much like the dawn of the internet. Well, they're wrong. This is very much like the dawn of the microprocessor. And everybody's going to go like, wait, what? Wait, what?
Yeah.
Like,
Wait, what?
There are the equivalents of Intel, Bitcoin.
Really?
Of Texas Instruments, Ethereum, of Motorola, Binance Coin. There are big coins that represent. It's not a mechanical infrastructure, but it's a protocol infrastructure. And if you remember, Intel back in the day created this little microcontroller. It wasn't smart enough to be called a microprocessor, called the 8051. That's kind of what Bitcoin is. Okay. And then we had the 68,000 family in Motorola. That's kind of like Ethereum. And then we came out with the cheaper versions, the 6502, and we migrated up to the 8080. That's very much like Binance Coin and Cardano and Solana and those. Now, imagine if you had invested.
We're still looking at in the future something like, the 8086, 286, 386, etc., till we get where we are today.
Kind of. Except it's going to be different. And it's going to be different because of something in one of those coins that came in 2015. And that's Ethereum. And it took me forever to wrap my head around this. What if you had, if you have a contract, if you and I have a contract, we write it down on a piece of paper, right?
Yep.
And and we send it back and forth to each other, and we sign it, and we notarize it, and we do all kinds of things. Both of us have a copy of that contract. What enforces that contract? The
External
law.
government law.
Okay, so that's an external force. Libertarians love to talk about force. It's an external force that acts upon a private contract between two consenting people.
Right.
What if the contract itself was an actor?
Yeah. We were starting to talk about that some last night, and that's where we get into really interesting parts of this.
What if the money, the currency, the asset, the crypto was itself an actor that could look at things like time, conditions being fulfilled, things along that line, and say, well, it looks like, Marshall has fulfilled his obligations to Bill. Therefore, I will now take this crypto out of escrow
and transfer
and move it over to Bill's account.
So if the
No
crypto
government influence,
notices
no
that
nothing.
you aren't fulfilling the contract, then you're not going to get
It
your
won't
crypto.
release the funds.
Wow.
It will not release them. Contract as actor is something a lot of people are not talking about so directly. They're talking about things like DeFi, and that also is huge. But
what was it again? They're
unlike
talking about what?
DeFi, decentralized finance,
Oh, okay.
or going bankless.
Right.
That's another term. If you have contracts that can act in accordance with the rules set forth in the contract to do the transfer of money or the transfer of crypto, why do we need lawyers?
Yeah, you don't need the lawyers.
contracts?
You don't need the external government forces. You don't need the banks.
More importantly, if I can say I will stake my Bitcoin, let's say I've got 2 Bitcoin, that's about $120,000. I can enter into a contract. Well, let's say Ethereum, because Bitcoin does not have this capability because it's a value store. Let's say I sell my Bitcoin and get the equivalent amount of Ethereum. And I say to you, I would like to borrow, I don't know, $50,000.
Right.
And I have $100,000 of Ethereum that I will stake in a smart contract with you, that until I pay you back, according to the contract, I don't get the Ethereum back.
Right. Okay.
No more banks.
Yeah.
No more mortgage companies.
Things like we libertarians would like to see the end of.
But
No more middlemen, just trade between individuals.
Try to wrap your head around a self-fulfilling, autonomous contract between two people. It's almost inconceivable. Yeah. Because we've grown up in this whole, bank, mortgage, insurance.
Right.
We don't need it. In fact, right now, I have a stash of a particular crypto. I'm not going to go into details.
You're not a financial advisor.
No, I am not a financial advisor. If you take my advice, you're as stupid as I sound. So, but let's say I didn't want to risk it trading, but I wanted it to appreciate in value. I could actually stake that amount. I could basically commit to keeping it in a vault for X number of days, weeks, months, whatever. And the people who benefited from me staking that could pay me 7, 10, 30% APY. You can do that right now in DeFi.
In what?
DeFi.
Right.
Distributed finance, or decentralized finance. If you wanted to buy, and this is one of the most amazing things I have ever heard. Let's say you wanted to buy, I don't know, a car, something expensive. but you didn't have the money to do it. So you put your crypto into a pool, and the crypto is double the amount of what you want to buy.
Okay.
And they give you the amount you want to buy a car. So you buy the car at $30,000. So there's $60,000 in their hands, $30,000 in your hands, and there's no interest.
Right. It wouldn't
be
because, well, yeah.
Because what you do is in the contract is you have the benefit of the Ethereum that's being held going to them until the debt is paid off, and then bam, you get your whole Ethereum back. You're done. I mean,
wow.
It's a very weird concept of, the asset you stake appreciates so much so quickly that there's no interest anymore because it gets made back within 4 to 5 years.
Wow. I mean,
yeah. And
I have to do my best Tucker Carlson face.
The part about that totally blows my mind is since all of these cryptos are considered assets, mm-hmm. you can stake an asset as a loan guarantee. You mm-hmm. can take the money as a loan that is paid back by the loan guarantee's action. And from what I understand, and do not take my words from this, talk to a tax advisor, you owe no tax.
Yeah, yes. Well, I mean, wow.
you don't owe tax on a loan.
Right.
And if you're staking it to yourself, you still owe no tax on a loan.
And the thing about this stuff is, a government will always try to come in and take its piece. But the thing about certainly I imagine you agree, by the time government figures out what's going on and how to regulate it, technologically we've moved beyond what the regulation covers. And so
in many ways that is correct.
I always like to tell people the internet innovates at the speed of light. Government regulates at the speed of law. And mm-hmm. they're two totally different things.
Well, the interesting thing here is there's actually one thing faster than light, and cryptocurrency runs at that speed. Imagination.
Yeah.
If you can imagine it, you can program it. If you can program it, you can put it into a smart contract. If you can put it into a smart contract, the world has changed.
Yeah.
And it's
the whole concept of a contract that enforces itself, essentially.
Yeah, contract.
Mind blowing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were talking about that last time, and I was just barely wrapping my head around it. So right now, at least it's something I've heard more than once, and I can comprehend what you're talking about. If the contract itself through blockchain is monitoring whether or not these terms have been adhered to, then it knows whether or not to transfer the money around.
Correct.
Wow.
And it can do very, very complex calculations.
So if we can get to that point, as you say, this is like investing in the microprocessor at the beginning, because nobody knew what those things were going to become and what their impact on finance, society, and so forth was actually going to be. And
well,
being able to look this forward and say, okay, well, this could be smart contracts. It could be it can be a lot of things.
I think you're missing the point, Bill.
Oh, okay.
Computers revolutionized the way information was shared and processed. Realize that computers didn't exist before the 40s.
Right.
Electronic ones. I know that there was the Babbage differential engine and all kinds of things like that.
Nothing like we have now, or even
how long has
since the 1940s.
How long has money existed?
Since recorded history and probably before.
Now, imagine that supercharged as much as a computer supercharged information.
Yeah, generally mind-blowing. You know, the potential for what it could become is enormous. It's going to take, from my perspective, more dramatic shift in terms of people's attitudes towards things like contracts. I mean, we've talked about this online. You're a very bright cookie. I'm a reasonably bright cookie, but I know I'm not as smart as you. I also know from having taught at where Joe Average is, and not to be bragging or anything, but they will never understand the concepts that you do. It has to be something where you've grown up with this as part of everyday life and don't have to understand it.
And according to a recent study, 60% of millennials plan on transacting with cryptocurrency in the next year.
Really? Wow.
So we're getting to the adoption phase.
Okay.
And okay, when we went from the microprocessor up to where we are now, which is Web 2.0 internet.
Right.
5G, all kinds of nice little buzzwords.
Right.
The actual value expansion was somewhere in the close order of about 10,000 to 15,000.
Right.
The close order. Multiply that times 1 million.
Yeah, or more.
Or more.
Yeah.
And that's what you're looking at when you disrupt the banks, the legal system, the mortgage companies, the insurance companies, retail, wholesale, supply chain, transportation, all of this stuff, because money touches everything.
Right. Yeah.
Everything. The fact that I'm sitting here talking with you on Skype, on YouTube, is backed by a multi-billion-dollar architecture.
Right. Yeah.
But you change money, and all of a sudden you're talking about a multi-quintillion change.
I mean, right now, I always like to tell companies and stuff that whether or not they know it or not, they are actually all IT companies, because IT backs every single transaction that they ever make now. But what you're talking about is getting rid of all of that.
Who needs an accountant when every single transaction is recorded on a public blockchain that can be analyzed by a computer and give you the optimal tax strategy for what has happened?
Right.
Who needs a tax advisor? Who needs an accountant? Who needs to keep the books?
And the computers that are going to be analyzing this stuff are going to be orders of magnitude smaller and faster than even what we have now.
Well, 5 years ago, if I wanted to run a Bitcoin and an Ethereum node, not a miner,
right,
just a node, it would have required a state-of-the-art system at the time.
Right.
And I just did this. This is a true story. I just bought a Lenovo desktop M90Q. Mm-hmm. And that is a little tiny 1-liter business desktop that has an Intel i7 in it, and I stuck in 16 gig of RAM and an SSD, and it is now running both of a Bitcoin and an Ethereum node.
Wow.
And I have the entire blockchain literally on my desk.
Wow, the entire blockchain? Damn.
Yes, multi hundreds of gigabytes on my desk. And
wow.
I'll tell you what my evil plan is. Marshall's evil plan. How many people are watching? Just 4 people. I'm one of them. Therefore, 3 people. Are you watching a monitor?
Yeah, I am. I'm watching 3.
Okay. So there's 2 people, and I guess that would be Johnny and Dalton. You guys are going to hear the big nasty secret.
We've actually got a couple on the other platforms, but
Oh, that's true. I forgot Twitch and Facebook. Hey guys.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, Bill, I'm still working on your project.
Totally back burner. I'm capable of talking about what's going on in different platforms right now. It's just that look at the screen space. So
Yeah. My evil plan is I have been studying both AI and algorithmic trading.
Yep.
And I have figured out that you can make money in these markets under three conditions. Only three conditions. If the price is going up, obviously. If the price is going down, and if it's ranging. Those are the only three times you can do it. Seeing that that's the only three states the market can be in.
Right. That's all the time.
Makes things fairly simple, yeah. So with all this data I have from the node, so I see every single Bitcoin transaction that goes through, every time it moves from wallet to wallet.
That's, by the way, for my viewers, that's what it means when you've got the entire blockchain. You are going to be able to see every single transaction that happens. You won't be able to see who to and from, but you'll know that the transaction has occurred, I guess is the best way to put it.
Well, you can do quantitative analysis on the wallets, and you can find out how much Bitcoin they have,
right? Okay.
Which is cool. So you know where the whales are, the whales being the big holders. You know where dead whales are,
yeah,
which, are wallets that haven't actually done any transactions in a long time,
right?
But have a lot of money. Mine is in there somewhere. I at one point had 1,000 Bitcoin. This was back literally a month or two after it had started, and it was incredibly cheap, like 7 cents.
If I had a time machine,
and I bought $70 worth of it.
If I had a time machine, I've said it over and over. If I had a time machine, I'd go back to 2000 and tell myself, when you hear about Bitcoin, liquidate every single last asset that you have and buy it.
You don't even need to do that. You just need to, whenever you hear about Bitcoin, do yourself a favor and buy 2,000 of them when they're less than $1.
Well,
and you'd have $100 million right now.
Right.
That's simple.
Yeah.
But if you take all of the data from the node, and you take all the data you can get from various exchanges like Coinbase or KuCoin or Binance, and you pull that data in. So now you have price, volume, time, and you have history. And you can create a very simple trading, algorithmic trading system using that automatically back tests all the strategies. It can throw it out to, my Omen PC, which, my Omen PC. Let me tell you a story. I bought a $1,400 Omen PC a couple of years ago. That's not the story. The story is it's more powerful than a Cray XMP supercomputer of the mid-'80s.
Yeah.
And you can leverage that power of the GPU, which is just a GTX 1070, to do artificial intelligence. You can do neural networks. You can do all kinds of analysis.
Right. Yeah.
And you can feed that information back into the algorithm, and you can then make trading decisions on it. And there's a lot of companies doing this right now. But you know me, I'm a heathen. I was thinking about selling it.
Selling the essentially the software. I think, you and I talked about this. It's essentially selling kind of a bot.
Well, no, I'm not going to sell a bot. I'm going to sell something that allows you to create your own bots. I'm not going to be financially responsible for a bot that may not work.
Right. Yeah.
But I don't have a problem being financially responsible for something that will let you make one.
Right.
Plus, I remember the old Wells Fargo story. How did Wells Fargo get so much money during the gold rush? They didn't go panning for gold. They sold pickaxes and shovels. So,
yeah. Let somebody else go bust or,
exactly
get money. They just sold the materials.
But I keep coming back to one fundamental thing. When I think about that, it's like, if you hold these cryptos, especially the good ones like Bitcoin and Ethereum, Those are what I call the Godzillas, or the big monsters. They have over $100 billion market cap.
Right.
They're the only two, by the way, now. If you buy them and you hold them for 5 years, you're making money. If you hold them for 10 years, you're making a crap load of money.
Yeah.
If you buy them and not try to time the market, but play the market correctly, because the market goes through cycles. It's usually about 3 to 4 years long. And you let it appreciate up to a crescendo. You start scaling out before it hits the peak.
Mm-hmm.
You wait for it to drop all the way back down. Then you take all the money that you pulled out there and reinvest it right back at the bottom.
Yeah. Buy low, sell high.
Well, no, sell high, buy low.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a contrarian. If the price is low and the asset is good, I buy.
Right.
So whenever the market crashes, which, we haven't seen a good 50% market crash in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
When it crashes to 50%, I sell out as close as I can when I detect there's a problem. And then I turn around and buy it once it levels off.
Right.
Once
it hits the trough, yeah.
Yeah, and you can start off with a fairly small amount, $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 worth of Bitcoin. And after 2 of those dumps, you can have 3/4 of a Bitcoin. And after another one, you can have more than one. And you're just pulling your money into the safe zone. And oddly enough, and this blows my mind, the safe zone is the US dollar coin.
Really?
Because you don't have to maintain value for long. You have to maintain value for a month or two. And it's not going up so fast that a month or two will significantly depreciate it.
Right.
So you move it out into USDC, wait for it to drop, come back in. And just wash and repeat,
Right.
That's not financial advice. That's what I do.
Right. Yeah, that's what you do.
There are other coins I don't touch, even when they collapse. VeChain. I've got 2,000 coins in VeChain. I bought them at 5 cents. I bought $100 worth of VeChain.
Mm-hmm.
VeChain is currently, right now, hang on, let me just go and check. Is it 23 cents? Now, I bought that about a month ago.
5 to 23 in a month. Essentially almost 5 times profit.
Yeah.
Or appreciation, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. So, if you're going to get into this, and I do, even though this is not financial advice, if a close friend of mine named Bill Stone said, "What should I do?"
Yeah.
I would say get exposure to it.
Yeah.
But learn first. Look at the market cycles. Understand what's going to happen. Yes, you're going to buy in and it's going to be too high. And then when it dumps, you're going to be panicking.
Right. But that's not the time to panic. That's the time to buy.
Well, no, for you, that's the time. When it starts dumping, that's the time for you to sell.
Right.
But whenever it finishes dumping, that's the time for you to get back in.
Right.
Because if you look at a linear graph of Bitcoin, this is one of the things I wanted to show on the stream, but we didn't have time to get that set up. It goes straight for almost 5 years. And then you see a little tiny hump.
Right.
And that was the 3rd market cycle.
Right.
Little tiny hump. It's like beep on the bottom. And then you get to now, and it literally goes all the way up and off the chart.
Right.
Because we have had 3 market cycles. This is the 4th. And every time, the first market cycle, you got 1,000x gains. The second market cycle, you got between 500 and 700 gains. The third market cycle, you got between 200 and 500 gains. This market cycle, it looks like it's going to be somewhere between 100 and 200x gains.
Wow.
I mean, even if you play 3 cycles, multiply them together,
Yeah.
If the next one is 100, and then the one after that is 70, and the one after that is 50. That's 100 times 70 times 50. That's 35,000.
Right. Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah. Like you
play
say,
the cards right.
sell when it's humping, and when it gets to the bottom and stays there, buy then.
Well, you do what's called DCA, dollar cost averaging. You see it's coming to a top, and like right now, I'm projecting a top for Bitcoin somewhere in the mid 250s. It was the mid 150s, and situations have changed. I've been looking at the stock to flow ratio and the Newport chart, net unrealized profit and loss, and thinking, this thing could actually 5x from here and maybe 7x from here.
Wow.
And so, so I'm looking at that and going like, okay, I'm not going to bet on 7. And I'm optimistic, so I'm not going to bet on 6. I'll bet on 4 or 5. And so 4, we're about at $60,000, give or take 3,000. So 60 times 4 is 240,000. 60 times 5 is 300,000. So I'm saying 250 maybe. Now, when do you sell? Well, everybody wants to sell at the high, right?
Mm-hmm.
They won't.
Right.
Because they let
a lot of people are just going to hang on to it.
And it's going to go up to 300,000 for 3 days.
Right.
And then it's going to drop back down to 100,000 in a week.
Right. Yeah.
It's going to flash drop. So what you do is, as you're getting close to what you believe to be the target, you start DCAing out, dollar cost averaging out. And I do it in 5 tranches. And one of those tranches I leave in case I'm wrong.
Right. Yeah.
The first, I sell off 20%. And it's a very hard formula to remember, so you might want to write this down.
I got the stream.
Yes, as you start out, you got the stream. Who cares? As you approach it, you sell off 20%. As you get a little higher, you sell off, let me do the numbers now, 20%. And then it gets a little bit higher, you sell off, numbers get harder here, 20%. And then the fourth one, you wait as long as you can, you see it peaking over, and you sell 20%. You leave the other 20% in.
Okay.
Just in case
you're wrong. Yeah.
And it's going to depreciate out. Let it.
Right.
You have now taken 80% of your stuff to a stable coin, let the thing fall, jump back in. You have just doubled your Bitcoin.
Right. Yeah.
Basically. Now,
wow.
I'm not including tax in that, because taking it out to a stable coin is a taxable event. Always keep that in mind.
Yep.
It will come back and bite you in the ass. Ethereum.
Make sure you file your taxes correctly.
Oh yeah, don't screw with them. They know how to find you.
Oh, yeah. It's the IRS, man.
They've got the best crypto forensics unit on the planet.
Why does this not shock me?
Ethereum. There's a lot of speculation. Some people say 15,000. Some people take 27,000. Some people say 40,000. 40,000 is ridiculous. I'll tell you that. Because that would require from a $5,000 Ethereum, which is $2,000 away, or $1,500 away right now, you'd have to 8x. I don't think it's going to do it.
Okay.
I think once again you're going to get maybe 5 or 6x. So from a $5,000 Ethereum, 5 or 6x would give you $25,000 to $30,000. I don't even trust that, because it's an altcoin. Just for definition's sake, an altcoin is a very simple way of saying anything but Bitcoin.
Right. Yeah.
It's real simple.
Yeah.
Ethereum, number 2, 400 billion, altcoin. It's stupid, but yeah.
Yeah, I know. I know the term altcoin just means something other than Bitcoin. Yeah.
I
think you said you had to be on a call at 11 p.m. your time.
Yeah, I haven't got the notification yet.
Because
it's
give me 1 minute to 11 your time, minutes. I think right now.
Yeah, they give me 10 minutes before it happens. So
do I need to let you off then?
No, not right now. Let me answer these 2 questions.
Okay.
Doge is an actual Ponzi scheme. No, it's
It's just something
don't
that
know how to
started as a
explain.
joke.
I don't know how to explain Dogecoin. It is a coin that gets its value from the stupidity of people who are posting it on social media.
Well, like I say,
That
I'm seeing a
value is
lot of
still valid.
actual paid advertising showing up on Twitter. It's
Yeah,
Dogecoin shows up about how it's being traded at such and such, market, and website will. I think the website itself is paying the money for it,
but
but
yeah,
I'm seeing a lot of
what's
that
the
right now.
what's the classic value of thing? It's what you can get for it.
Right.
And if people are paying 70 cents for Dogecoin from you, who cares if it's real, fake, or a Ponzi scheme? For some reason, people seem to value it.
Yeah.
And, fine. I'm
Yeah.
not going to invest in it. And, again, not financial advice, but don't do it. Don't invest long term in a coin that's just stupid.
Yeah.
If you want to trade it, however, there is a algorithm, and it's a simple one. And I'm planning on doing this in the bull market between the two, the bear market between the two bull markets. Is you find out where it's trading in general when it's idle. And
Okay.
the last market, it was 5 cents. And you buy 1,000 shares. And when
Right.
it doubles, when it goes up to 10 cents for whatever reason, you sell half.
Right.
And then
Right.
you wait for it to settle back to 5, and then you buy it back.
Right.
You buy 1,000 shares. You have now made $500,
Right. Yeah.
or $50. I'm sorry.
50. Yeah.
And then you just keep rinsing and
Doing the
repeating
same
that,
thing, rinse and repeat. Yeah.
waiting until it pumps. Now, if it pumps up, it doubles up, and you get half of it out. Then you have a question to make. It's like, well, do I want to let the next part ride and then sell it at 4 times or 5 times?
Right. Yeah.
Or do I want to sell, 20% when it doubles, then 40% when it triples, and 50%, 60% when it quadruples? I mean, you can trade it,
Right.
and it's perfectly fine because the social media memes come and go.
Right.
And every time it seems to come with Dogecoin, it seems to pump.
Yeah.
So it's tradable, but I wouldn't invest in it.
Yeah. You
And Bill
can't tell
will
where it's
tell you.
going.
For the longest time, I said I don't trust this stuff, but I will trade it. I can make a lot of money trading it.
Right.
And now it's the entire world has changed around me. And so, being a rational person, I'm changing around to
Right.
compensate. But no, it's not really a Ponzi scheme. It's just it's stupid money that is valued by people who don't know better. So, I'm perfectly willing to take advantage of them.
They heard Doge, and that's been a meme for years now, and they thought it was fun and cool. So they're buying
Well,
it.
okay. Yeah. Let's see. Johnny says crypto's made me a lot of money, but it's basically gambling compared to Forex. Um, Crypto is Forex. You're exchanging one currency for another. Um,
Yeah.
I don't see the difference there. And honestly, I would much rather, make 10x in my trades than, 1%. I'm weird that way. I mean, if my upside is 10x and my downside, I can do a stop loss and stop it at 1%. That's a pretty good risk reward in my opinion.
Yeah.
Uh, and you only
Yeah.
have to get one right every, let's say, 100 times in order to stay even. And believe me, I
I know
I
you're doing
do.
well on it. Yes, I know you're doing well. And
It is.
TGG is
It's
saying so.
basically
It's basically Pet Rock's
it is.
Dogecoin coin,
It's rocks.
kind
It's
of.
what were the stupid dolls? The
Oh, the Beanie
stupid doll
Babies.
babies. And now we've got the bobble, not the bobblehead, but the plush toys.
Yeah,
What are they? The
I
something
don't know
O.
anymore.
I can't remember. Yeah, You got it. It's a pet rock, and
Yeah.
I'm going to take advantage of it as long as pet rocks are valuable.
Yeah. As long as people will
You
buy
know,
a rock.
I've got a plenty of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll sell them to you for $3 a piece.
Yeah.
You know.
I'm waiting for tribbles to come around.
Oh God, that's what we should do. Let's start a new coin and call it Trib.
Tribble coin. Oh God.
Yeah, Tribble coin.
Well, we could, but it'd be
It's
getting
in
popular with
it's
at least a certain generation of Star Trek fan and
it's
science
by
fiction fan.
it's by definition inflationary.
Yeah. You
Just
tell
keep
people
reproducing.
it multiplies its value by 10 every day or 12 every day.
Yeah. Your job, try to make money with it. You ain't gonna do it.
Yeah.
Uh, oh,
Oh
but
man. Well, as always, that's good and mind blowing. You know, best time to do a Tucker Carlson face is always doing talking to you.
I don't know if I should take that as a compliment or an insult. Um,
He's always got the exact same expression. I get a kick out of no matter who he's talking to. It's always, just weird.
Uh,
Good.
I'm going to ask the three people here a question, and you, Bill.
Hmm.
Um,
Up to 5 now.
I have been and unknown person number 2 or
Yeah.
number 1. I don't know who you are.
Yeah.
If I were to create a YouTube channel that was half of the talking about Bitcoin and about crypto, and the other half teaching people how to trade in this on the different exchanges, do either of you guys think it might be worth watching?
I
Nope,
would
no
certainly
answer.
watch
Nope.
it. I would certainly watch it.
Damn it.
I mean, I think you'd have to start with, some basic principles, about
Yeah.
what this stuff is and how you make money with it. And, because there's lots of people out there that I see on social media who are just like, hang on to it, always hang on to it, as opposed to, making money based on selling and buying. So,
Well, my portfolio is 50% Bitcoin that I don't touch, except I trade it 2 times. I trade at market high and market low. That's it. I
Yeah.
sell high and buy low. That's the trade I make, and it's done once per market cycle. I have 40% Ethereum, same deal, and the goal here is maximize gains during the bull run. The remaining 10%, oh yes, I trade. God, I trade. And I'll make about 70% of what I make with the rest, with the other 90%, just trading. So, and I don't stick with the 2 big coins. I mean, I got VeChain, I've got Solana, Cardano, BNB. Oh, where is my thing at here? What's my current looking like?
that would be another thing, too. If you were going to do a YouTube channel, you'd be able to have, because some of the stuff that you'd have to explain to people, in terms of
Yeah.
financial terms and what to look for, and the fact that you have the expertise to pull up, the right charts and put them in, where you can show them and explain what this means and what that means. I think that would be serious value to me.
Okay, so it looks like at least
Mostly
3
people
people.
saying yes or neutral.
Yeah, but they'll always say yes until I start putting out the world's most boring crypto videos. Because it is boring. It's a discipline. You have to turn off your emotions. You have to turn into a trading computer,
Mhm.
and you're going to lose a lot, and you're going to gain a lot, and
Yeah.
nobody wins forever. The trend is your friend until the end, until it isn't. So, well, I might consider this the world's most boring crypto channel. I think that's a good one.
Well, I don't know how it would do. I mean, I think you might have a better chance in terms of it than what I do, because I, particularly on YouTube, I know for a fact that my content is artificially pushed down because of what it is. But Bitcoin being this thing, that's very big and the tech companies tend to like, you might do quite a lot better than me.
The one thing that I've noticed, and it kind of makes me sad, is the popular YouTube channels that I watch for information on crypto. If the people tell the truth about crypto, and the truth is, it's just like any other stock or any other Forex thing. Sometimes it goes up, sometimes it goes down, sometimes it ranges. If they dare say it's going down, they start getting dislikes.
Right.
And if they say it's ranging, they start losing people. And I'm looking at this going, how do you get across to people that any time it moves, there is the potential to make
money on the trade?
Yeah. And so
I know what you're talking about. I've seen it on social media. I don't necessarily see it, in those videos. But I mean, on the science fiction side, I have noticed that if there's basically two types of channels, but mostly if you're on the science fiction side and you're enraging people, then they come in.
Then you get the views.
Yeah, you get the views. If you start to not be enraging, then you don't. If people who are going to come down on Brie Larson, just tons of views when that was trending. If they were going to say what I was, the few things I had to say about it and nothing else, not in multiple videos, then it's just not that popular. They're not getting enraged.
Well, the thing about any trading is if you let your emotions govern you, you'll lose.
Right. Yeah.
And the whole concept of outrage because any particular crypto issue is going down is so foreign to me, because all I do is think of it as I have to flip my polarity. That's it. Yeah. Instead of doing longs, I do shorts. And instead of, looking for reasons for it to go high, I look for reasons for it to go low. Am I in danger of getting stopped out? It's not a question of emotion. It's a question of tactics.
Right.
And a couple of weeks ago, Bitcoin took a really nasty drop.
Yeah, I saw that.
63, somewhere around there, 63, down to 47.
Yeah.
And it was on a Saturday night. I remember this. I went into the kitchen and my aunt was in there. It was middle of the night. She's staying with us. I'm going like, Bitcoin just dumped $5,000. And she goes, ooh, get me out. And she's in it too now. She's got $100 in Bitcoin.
No, that's the wrong time to get out. It's the time to buy more.
Well, for me, it wasn't that. It was, okay, do I short it? In other words, do I borrow coin in order to play to the downside, hoping that I'm not going to get stopped out if it bumps up? Or do I change my cost basis by dumping all the Bitcoin I have at the level that it's at, which is lower than it was, but it was much higher than when I bought it. So, I was at I think 58,000 when I finally made the decision, okay, I want to dump the Bitcoin and I'm going to wait for it to settle. And it went down to 47. Now, realize everybody else everywhere was, the world is coming to an end. And I'm just sitting there going, stabilize out. Where are you? Stabilize out. Okay, start reappreciating. Okay, good. Popped in at 50K. I just made $8,000 worth of Bitcoin on that. Now, I didn't make actually $8,000. You have to multiply it by the number of Bitcoins you have. But I changed my cost basis. So I did, in effect, make money by doing that. It's not panic. It's not emotion. It's tactics.
Right.
And I actually think you make more money in the bear market between bull markets than you make during the bull market. Just by playing, simple strategies. but you got a long time to play them, and they happen all the time. And now if I've got access to, exchange data and blockchain data,
Right.
I can do all kinds of fancy things. I can arbitrage, because one of the cool things, a lot of these altcoins use Ethereum as their blockchain.
Mm-hmm.
I've got all their chains
Right. Yeah.
by definition. So I can look at exchanges and arbitrage. So if Bitcoin, is, let's just say $41,000 on Coinbase, but on Binance, it's at 40,500. That's a big difference. So it's probably not going to happen. I could actually create a smart contract on Ethereum that would actually buy a lot of the 40,000 or, the 500 one.
Right. And then sell
and
it
then
over.
switch it on the other exchange and sell it. But then I could multiply it using what's called flash loans, which is another DeFi thing. I could borrow $1 million for
and then
one
immediately pay it
transaction,
back or shortly pay it back.
for one transaction. And I didn't do it $1 million. I did it much less. But I actually tested my contract on a $10,000 loan, and it went through perfectly. It's like poof, you're up. You've now got 28 Ethereum. You move it over there, you sell it. Now you've got much more money, and then you pay back the loan, and you come out way in the black because you've just leveraged one Ethereum to 28.
Right.
Those numbers aren't right. I'll just give an
I know.
example.
You're just
But
throwing them out there. Yeah.
But yeah, you can do some amazing things with DeFi and with the smart contracts. And yeah, I'm going to have a bot that's going to be looking at those exchanges and figuring out when to do the arbitrage trading.
Right.
So you can do all kinds of stuff that's just amazing.
Well, like I say, after the last one, and this one certainly confirms it, you pretty much switched how I think about this completely. And when you bring up things like the smart contracts and the implications of that on finances, on government, on just everything, in terms of what we take for granted and how we pay for things. It's astonishing. It's really astonishing.
Yeah. We got anything here? Be interested to see where you enter and exit the market and why. Oh, boy. I will tell you, Johnny, that is the hardest question you can ask, because I'm assuming you're talking about initial entry, initial exit, where you have nothing in the market or very little, and you're getting ready to push a lot in. One of the hardest questions in the world. It really is. The safest answer would be wait until whatever asset you have drops incredibly bad. I mean, literally into the dump heap. And at that point in time, start allocating your portfolio around it and other things you want to buy. And then just sort of sit around and wait. And wait for the pumps to come to you, not the other way around. Don't chase them, because they will. If the fundamentals of the idea is good, not Doge. Doge has no fundamentals. But if you've got something that has good fundamentals, they've got a good idea, it's a usable, it has utility, it has facility, we can do that, it's secure, and it's beginning adoption, sit and wait. And people get pissed at me because they go, well, there's opportunity cost that you're losing. Yeah, there is. Get over it. You're looking at 100x on the other end of this.
Right.
Your opportunity is for 10x's. Wait for the 100.
Right.
And that's what I've done actually, is during the previous market dump, I basically took $200 a month. Okay? $200 a month. I just go out and buy $200 worth of this or $200 worth of that, and it's things that I really have an affinity towards. Hang on for just a second. I got a problem I got to deal with. Okay.
Okay. Do you need to go to that conference call? No, we'll let him go here. Marshall, as I mentioned, a very bright guy. He is in IT. He's working right now. his workload is so astonishing. I don't know how he does it. Part of the reason I'm retired is I kind of burnt out. I just kind of burnt out over time. I know from what I know that he does, I have no idea how he keeps at it. I'd have burned out a long time ago. But in addition to all of the stuff that he's analyzing with crypto, he's also doing other work with artificial intelligence. He has a number of different clients. One of the ones that's more interesting is, and I mentioned it at the time when it happened, during the George Floyd riots, he had a doctor who was a client of theirs who had his physical business completely destroyed by the rioters.
That's right.
But his background allowed him to have him back up with backups and stuff within 24 hours. And
actually, it was less than 24 hours. The cool thing, though, was that the data was backed up on alarm. Yeah. So the moment he basically called our number, the emergency number, we had his caller ID, and we immediately initiated a backup. And it went to the cloud. It flew to the cloud before the place burned down.
Right. Which saved his business.
Yes. He is now back in freaking Minneapolis. I don't understand why. But okay. You know.
Well, as long as he's not in that area. I mean, I've been to Minneapolis several times. It's a large metro area. There are places where it's a lot more safe, probably.
Well, we covered it. They were in a safe area. You know.
Well, so you never know. You never know.
That's
now.
True.
It's virtually impossible. When they can cause tens of millions of dollars of damage in my city, no place is safe.
Yeah, he did have to buy new computers, but the
well,
data was
that's
safe.
When you get into a decently sized doctor's office. Even that is relatively minor, and I assume that he got money on his insurance for those.
He actually got more than he lost.
Oh, really?
I don't know how he managed to do it, but he did.
Creative reporting, I would imagine.
I don't know. There's some of those medical machines that actually appreciate in value.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. Well, it's not my gig, so I don't know it. But yeah. But yeah. I was going to say I had to leave in order to go pee in a mason jar, but what I really had to do was find a cat that was trying to attack the other cat under my bed.
Oh, good.
And I am on my bed, therefore.
Right. Yeah. Impossible to ignore these two cats trying to kill each other.
Right. Yeah. So.
Anybody said the cats
were here.
But yeah, I'm surprised they haven't called you before now. So.
That's as you remember, our mutual friend, rest his soul, Robert Ruiz. He always had questions about God,
right?
And my favorite line about God is, God does God things for God reasons, and you might as well not try to figure it out.
Yeah,
because you can't think. Cats do cat things for cat reasons too. So
yeah,
we're fine there for about an hour, and all of a sudden it's like,
yeah.
Oh,
Time to kill each
is
other.
dropping. Let's have a fight.
Yeah, I'll never forget. I had a cat that we'd had for a long time. Then I had an old girlfriend way long ago give me a new cat, a kitten, and the old cat. The kitten would go and try to bother it, like, hey, let's play. I'll never forget sitting in the kitchen over in the room, like a little cat, let's play. And the younger cat was, and the older cat just kind of lopes through, and you could tell just by her looking at you, like, you a-holes have brought into me. And she loped from one room to the next, and then the little cat was after her over there, and she loped back into the other one. She avoided actually killing the smaller cat, but I think she probably had it in her head.
Oh, I see Dalton had a question that I missed. I really want to be convinced. Oh, it's not, so I will watch it. Convinced of what?
This is one of those things that is I can see
I
from
mean,
what you're talking about in terms of what the potential is here. Really
I mean,
does have the potential to change the world in the same way that computers change the world. And
yeah,
people who are born today haven't seen that change. I've seen it, and there have been at least three major complete paradigm shifts in terms of how computing has altered the world. And this is one of those things where we're on the beginning of one.
yeah,
This is
very
probably going to
much
be
so.
the fourth major change in paradigm in terms of how computing changes the world.
And the first one when it comes to finance,
Yeah,
when you
yeah.
think about it.
Nothing has changed in
Uh,
finance for thousands of years. Not really.
that's right. This is the financial renaissance in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
Um, Now, don't get me wrong. The existing financial structure is going to kick and scream and yell and do every dirty trick in the book.
yeah,
It's just it can they succeed in squashing it?
right.
And the answer to that's no.
Yeah,
It's worldwide. Every country on the planet would have to take the same action at the same time. What are
and
the
that ain't
odds of
going to
that?
happen. They never agree.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And you've got some countries who are actually, getting close to these, like Cardano, ADA, is in talks with an African country. I cannot remember which one it is, to actually facilitate some of its government services. Think about
some
that.
of
I think
those
it
would
has to do
probably
with
be a good
IT.
one to do.
I know.
Yeah,
20% of the world does not have a bank.
right. Yeah,
Now they can,
yeah,
you know. Um,
yeah,
the 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 potential is mind-boggling.
yeah,
The reality will be less mind-boggling, but still mind-boggling.
yeah.
And you know, um,
I would
if we're
assume
talking
the way
about
that it would go would be very similar to the way computing has happened. As I say, over my lifetime and of course in this industry, I've kind of seen what I can identify as three major shifts where everything changed afterwards. And this is one of those ones where I don't think you would see an immediate massive change, but you would see individual massive changes.
yes, the first thing is cryptocurrency itself, or crypto
Right.
assets. Um, uh, Satoshi Nakamoto took a very simple data structure and applied it in a way that nobody else has ever done it,
Right.
and invented Bitcoin. And he did so in the height of the 2008 2010 housing crisis, when
Right.
they were talking about quantitative easing and everything. This whole thing was born out of that crisis.
Right.
In fact, the Genesis block, the very first block of Bitcoin, has a quote from some chancellor talking about quantitative easing.
Hmm.
A lot of people don't know that. Um,
I didn't know that. No.
so, you know,
And
this
then you
is
get
this is a
to a point where you can't really have something like the housing crisis. I mean, the housing crisis was to a very big extent linked to how
because of government.
government was dealing with housing loans and breaking all of those things up and how they allowed it to happen. With crypto, you're dealing with, again, something where the blockchain itself would be dealing with, okay, I'm going to buy this house from you, as opposed to going through lenders who then break
Right.
up your loan into multiple little pieces.
You can still
And
do that,
that got so screwed up that it caused the housing prices.
but they can still do that. What they cannot do is change the conditions of the initial contract.
Right.
They can sell their interest in it. They can divvy it up and sell their interest in it, but they can't touch the contract. They
Right.
can touch their piece of the returns from the contract. They can assign it, they can delegate it, they can burn it, they can do whatever they want to with it, but they can't change the contract.
Right.
And, you know, that alone,
Yeah.
how many times has your bank, how many times have you had your bank changed?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm in with Wells Fargo. Now you're with Bank of America. No, now you're with the PNC. Now you're with BB&T. It's like, I don't have agreements with any of you people.
Right.
Screw off.
You just
I
change the
have an
terms of the
agreement with,
contract unilaterally, and you can't do that
I
if
have
the
an agreement
blockchain
with
is
Bill Stone.
following the contract.
Yeah, I have an agreement with Bill Stone Automotive. I bought a car from Bill. Stay out of it.
Yeah.
Our contract is there. Go away. That's the power it gives to the individual.
Right. When we get to that point, it's going to be another major paradigm shift.
What was the line? The one of the culminating climactic sequences to Babylon 5 is the Agamemnon comes out of hyperspace and blows up one of the space stations that Sheridan is going in to destroy by ramming it because they've lost their
Right.
guns.
I remember
And the guy coming in on the other ship gets on the horn to John and says, "Hang on to your hats." That's what it is. Hang on to your hats. It's going to be a big explosion.
Yeah.
This is the most disruptive technology ever designed. Ever.
Yeah.
In the history of mankind. It beats the wheel. It beats the machine.
Yeah.
It beats everything.
Yeah.
And,
because it does fundamentally alter finance itself. Something that has not changed really through all of
millennia.
Recorded history and quite possibly before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's barter to the nth degree when you get right down to it. And it's so amazing that it's such a simple concept that has been refined into the closest thing to digital perfection that it could be.
Yeah.
And it's going to change the world. And just having a small piece is going to be worth
much bigger
amount.
returns down the road.
Yeah. And now people are finally getting around to what we talked about the last time. There's the big guys.
Right.
I think they've been listening to me because they said, the Satoshi is like the cent to Bitcoin.
Is it?
So when it gets to be 1 cent, and I finished the statement, I was like, yeah, Bitcoin will be $100 million. And he goes, Bitcoin would be $100 million. It's like, you're just now figuring that out. Do I think it's going to get there? No, I do not. I think it is going to get to 1 million easily, to 10 million likely. 100 million probably not. Might be wrong. I've been wrong before. I thought I was wrong and I wasn't. Along with the other 5,047 times. But other than that.
Well, I guess I've been wrong a few times. I was wrong about Bitcoin. I was totally 100% wrong about it. I
tried to tell you, bro.
I don't mind saying, I know you did. I know you did.
But I didn't understand it then either. Your skepticism made me dive very deep into it.
Well, at least it was good for something, I guess.
Yeah. But then when I told you what I found out, you still didn't believe me. So
no.
That one's on you. Okay.
I was a dumbass. Then get that time machine. Find me the Guardian of Forever, the real one. And I'll happily go back to 2000 and just tell myself. And by the way, tell your parents to load up on it as well.
Yeah. On the 2 cycles that I've been in, I'm up 1,000 times.
Wow.
And this cycle is probably going to at least quadruple before it's over.
Wow.
So, if you want to be convinced, go look at the numbers, Dalton. That's all you have to do. Yeah. Look at the numbers, look at the cycles.
That's one of the things
return on investment.
That's one of the things that I've been interested to see over time is the cycles. I mean, we've had a couple of big ones, that are obvious, but now that you can see that yes, this actually does have cycles,
Oh yes.
At one point I was like, does this have cycles or is it just going to go up and then die? But no, it's got these cycles.
Well, the projections are it's going to have cycle. It's going to have at least 5 or 6 more cycles, and they're going to slowly decrease in return on investment to a stable area, and then it's going to start very slowly ramping up. And the slow ramp up will be because of the next 100 years of deflationary, not inflationary
Fiat
policy.
currency.
And then no, Bitcoin itself will be inflationary for about 100 years.
Oh, okay.
And then it stops. And so you're going to have a nice steady, going along the inflationary curve, because the assets will go up in price based on inflation. And then when the deflationary part hits, or it's not deflationary, it's the static, it's stasis. Right. When stasis hits, you will see that slope jump up, because now you've got a fixed supply, there's no more, and you've got increasing demand. So,
right.
So
that'll cause it to go
but
up.
The current estimate is, 4 to 6 more cycles before it starts becoming less volatile. And you want it volatile if you want to make large ROIs.
Right.
And if you want to
make
trade.
large returns, volatility is good. Yeah.
Right.
You just have to make sure have some thought like you do. Again, not financial advice, but some idea as you do of where the plateaus are going to, the highs are going to be, and how much to, 20% here, 20% then, 20% then, and leave 20 and like that.
Well, I'll tell you my numbers. I'll tell you my numbers. I'm expecting a high of $250,000 on Bitcoin. My Bitcoin assets, I'll start scaling out at about 180. So I'll take 20% of the 180. I'll take 20% at 200. I'll take 20% at 220, and I'll take 20% at 240. And I'll let the rest ride. If it goes up to 300, hey, cool.
You got 20% in it, yeah.
But yeah, I've got 20% in it. If it goes up to 400, hey, cool. If it goes up to 500, hey, cool. If it drops, hey, cool. Right. It's all tactics.
You can put the other in.
It's not emotion. Yep.
Right.
Yeah. If it starts diving down, you sell.
Yeah, and that's, like you said, that's what people have the most trouble divorcing themselves from psychologically is, okay, you got to think about this as tactics as opposed to thinking about it in terms of what kind of money have I lost, At various times, homes that I've owned would be worth less, that would the appraised value less than what I actually paid for it. But I just ignore that because it's totally theoretical. It doesn't matter. You have to look at what it's going to be at the time that you're planning to sell it. And a lot of people, my ex has a hard time, divorcing that. She would watch the prices and all of that, and I would like, just forget about it. It doesn't matter. It's just a question of when you sell it, what's it going to be like? But divorcing yourself from the notion, oh no, I've just lost $20,000. Wait
no,
till
you didn't.
Sell. Yeah,
you didn't lose $20,000. See, that's the fault. That's the fatal flaw. I often cite the 3 H's from Hades. Okay, hope, hype, and hate.
Yeah.
If you let any one of those get in,
right,
you're doomed.
Yeah.
You are doomed. So that's why you look at the thing stoically, and you make plans, and you set them on. I've got a little notebook, and every time it hits a certain level, it's a new page in the notebook. So I've got a page for $100,000 Bitcoin. Okay, it's like, what is my strategy for this, and how do I plan on that? Goes up to 125 is another page, 150 another page, 175 another page. But 175 page, it says sell 20% at 180.
I see. Yeah.
And I just do it. I do not think about it. I do not judge it. I say, I have planned this. This is my optimal exit strategy to preserve the value.
Right.
And I execute the trade. I don't think about it.
Yeah.
At 200,000, right there at the very bottom. Oh, you've hit 200,000. Congratulations. Sell 20%. Bam, and it's gone.
Right.
You algorithmically run your strategy and your tactics. And you save all the emotion and the hype and all this other bullshit for your trading, because trading is psychological, almost 100% psychological. And hope, hype, and hate can work to your favor if you realize that's what's happening on the other side of the equation. Look at all the hope around Dogecoin. All the hype, Dogecoin. So that's what I say. Don't invest in it, but trade the hell out of it, because it can go up at a moment's notice, and it can go up 10x, and you won't even blink an eye. It's like, poof, there. Okay, sell.
Somebody bought the pet rocks.
Yeah. Throw the pet rocks through the window when necessary. And that's how I play it. It's not, I want to screw somebody else out. It's like, this is the strategy. This is the plan. This is the algorithm. This is the tactic. And you execute the tactic, and you win and you lose.
Right.
And you're going to lose.
Sure.
It's like, well, that didn't work. And I have said those words more time than I would like to admit.
Well, anytime you're learning how it works, how your algorithm matches reality or not, that's, as I was going to say, you and I, and more you than I probably, have a benefit of being in a field that is dependent on logic, not on emotion. We do these things. If you're writing a program, it's from point A to point B to point C in order to, accomplish a task. So you can take that and apply it to finance, where you're taking your emotion out of it. And it's just okay, here's what we do, here's what we do, here's what we do, as opposed to having emotion in it.
Yeah. Now, I do have a big red button on my my trading console that says dump. I do.
In the event that it's all going to hell.
Yeah, not one time in the past 10 years that I've been involved in some small or large way in crypto have I ever even looked at it. I know it's there.
Right.
I know that if everything goes to pure hell, that will allow me to get out. But in terms of seriously considering punching it, no, it's abort the rocket, Yeah.
Right.
And usually I have a strategy for dealing with things. Because, like I said, you make money only 3 times in the market: going up, going down, and going sideways.
Yeah.
You just got to figure out which one you're in. And there are a lot of tools to help you out with that. Maybe that's what I should do next time I come on, is show you some of these tools. And,
I would be thrilled.
Yeah.
Well, no doubt we can do as many of these shows as you want, or you can come up with your own YouTube channel where you're doing it. Barrier to entry is very low, particularly for you. You've got more than all the equipment necessary to do this, I'm sure.
A friend of mine who is in government here in Asheboro came into my house and saw my server racks. And, I mean, we have like 13 actual desktop computers. We've got 7 or 8 55-inch monitors that are monitors for the computers.
Oh,
they also serve as media stuff. And then we've got...
You got a freaking NOC, a Network Operations Center, for God's sake.
We basically do here. And he came in and he goes, damn, you've got more computers here than we do in the city.
I believe that.
And, it's like... and it's like,
that's just what you do.
Just for fun. Yep. I didn't do this for my health, for God's sakes. I know that.
I was saying while you were out dealing with your cats, I don't know how you haven't burned out yet. I kind of already did. So
well, I can definitely understand it. You have to be stoic.
Very.
Yeah. There are stupid people out there, and there are incredibly brilliant people out there.
Yep.
And I surround myself with the incredibly brilliant people, and I point and laugh at the stupid ones behind their backs.
I have been very lucky.
I'll do whatever you want.
I have been very lucky in my career to mostly work with people who are very, very competent. The only time I worked with somebody who was incompetent, he got he kind of got gotten back at by somebody else. They were going on a business trip, and the one guy, they were supposed to meet or something, and the one guy didn't show, and so he had to take another form of transportation to get back. And this was back in the day of cathode ray tube monitors. So to get back at this guy, before he came to this office, the guy who got screwed took big magnets and went to his CRT and wrote the word a-hole, with the magnet, which meant that when he turned it on, there it was, But that's the only time I've really had to work with anybody I thought was truly incompetent, aside from some bosses. But some managers who've been less than competent.
The thing that really pisses me off is I want to call it lack of appreciation, but I don't like the word appreciation because it implies resentment.
Right.
But a lack of thoughtfulness in what other people do for you. And I tell you, that will make me mad. Seriously mad. And it's a programmed response. We had a developer, and at the time I was in webcast.com, a company that I started in Phoenix, Arizona. We got acquired by Avant Digital Marketing, and then they changed their name over to Webcast, and then we got acquired by iBeam Broadcasting. And it was a good story, but as we were getting started, we were heavily integrated with Lotus Notes.
Oh, yikes.
I know. Yes. I fought tooth and nail.
Administered them.
I was the CTO and the COO, and they kept bringing up very good points that I couldn't ignore, like imagine the returns on investment. And I'm like, damn you. Damn you to hell. That was actually funny because that interchange actually happened between me and the president of iBeam Broadcasting. It's like, damn you to hell. I can't argue that. So we hired a developer out of Texas. I'm not going to mention his name for obvious reasons. And I had contacts in IBM who had bought Lotus. And I had managed to score the unscorable, which was a 1-to-1, or actually 1-to-N meeting. There was about 12 people on this development team who were in the exact right part of Lotus Notes development that my guy was going to be working in.
Oh, cool.
And
being able to get the right people on the phone with the right people is fight.
No, but I'm talking about person to person.
Right. Either way.
We were going to Lotus Sphere in Orlando, Florida. And it
Lotus
was
Sphere is a big conference for those who don't know.
Yeah, and it was simultaneously being run with Berlin. So our remote teams were in both Berlin and Orlando. Oh. I was there as an executive producer and, chief bottle washer. I didn't produce hardly anything on it. I was just there with the sign on, basically, to handle all the stupid people who were asking stupid questions from stupid companies. But we hadn't completely locked the meeting down. So I was talking to my contact in IBM, and he said, okay, we've got 11 of the 12 developers here, and we blocked out 2 hours for your guy. I'm going like, great, let me get my guy. I put out a call over the network, tell him, come over, and he doesn't show up. I'm like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And first I was alarmed, It's like, is he okay?
Yeah.
So then I put out an all call for Orlando saying, has anybody seen XYZ? And I get this meek little call from from our best producer, Carmen. And she goes, we need to talk. And those are deadly words.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Deadly words. And I'm going like, is it bad? And she goes, oh yeah, it's bad.
Oh.
Is the guy coming? She goes, no. Shit. So I had to go and cancel
Right.
this thing that I had planned for a month and a half.
Orchestrated, yeah.
Orchestrated, got together, and my friend had to work and move mountains. Carmen comes to my place, my station, after working on a production she was working on. And she goes, he left last night.
Oh, just left the company?
No, he left Orlando. He didn't feel like he was being utilized.
Oh. Yikes.
Do you know what happened when I got back to Phoenix?
One of two things: either you beat the shit out of him, or you went to him and said, "No, God, no, you're, the most important thing we had."
I did not lay a finger on him.
Mm-hmm.
I said, "What the fuck? Sorry, YouTube, I just got you demonetized, but you're not monetized anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Anyway, it doesn't matter.
What the fuck were you thinking, leaving without talking to me?"
Right.
Or anybody else? Why the fuck did I hire you under these conditions?
Right.
And what the fuck are you going to be doing tomorrow when you're out of a job?
Yeah.
And the guy was completely nonplussed. He says, "Well, nothing was happening. Nobody was happening. Nothing,
you don't leave without telling somebody."
Okay, number one, you went there because I wanted you to learn what we did. And you can't do that from Texas when all the action's in Orlando and Berlin.
Right. Yeah.
Number two, you never, ever, ever leave a location event without telling the chief person. Period. Yeah. Because they may be depending on you for important things. Because, well, you weren't doing anything for me. I said, number three, you made me look like a fool in front of IBM and the 11 developers who I got together to come and see you and talk to you for 2 hours and answer any and all of your questions. Now do you understand why you're fired? And the look of horror on his face was precious.
How old was this guy?
But
I mean,
he was
young, I hope.
He was 23, 24.
Well, and at least too dumb to know, I guess. I'm surprised, but
he goes, I had no idea. I says, I wasn't sure about it until we got everybody in one location.
Right.
So I want you to leave understanding this.
Right.
Number one, you don't know everything. Sometimes it's by design.
Yeah. Number
two, you don't go and screw around the people who are depending on you.
Yeah.
And number three, get out of my fucking office.
Now, before I beat the crap out of you.
What does this all have to do with crypto? Nothing.
Nothing
except
whatsoever.
For one thing.
No.
Except for one thing. When I first learned of it, I saw red. I let hate really, really get to me. It's like, this is unimaginable. It took Carmen and Lane and Tony and Carolyn and about 5 other people to calm me down.
Yeah, to stop you from just going out and committing murder.
To stop me from getting on an airplane, going to his fucking house and bringing him back.
Oh, okay.
And all of them said, look, he's not fit for this job.
Right. Yeah. He's going to do that.
Calm down. I love this from Carmen. Carmen was a redhead spitfire who was literally the best producer we had. And she put her hand on my shoulder, which of course now is sexual harassment. And she goes, Marshall, you still have a job to do. Handle this when you get home.
Right. Yeah.
Best advice ever. You have a job to do. Your job is to appreciate assets. That's it. You can't let the emotion take over.
Or the moment take over. Just do the thing and plow through. And when it comes time, then, I get that. Yeah.
You like Spock on Galileo 7. You reasoned it was time for an emotional outburst. You control it.
Yeah.
You never let it control you. You get back to doing your job. So you lost a $10,000 trade. Yeah. Okay. Feel sorry for yourself later, asshole. Get back to work.
Yeah.
And your algorithms, your strategies, your tactics can save you in that situation. Because believe me, you will have emotional times. As much as I've traded for 20 plus years. I still have emotional times when I see too many red candles, and going like, well, and all my dreams torn asunder, it's like, okay, execute emergency plan B,
Well, I tell you what, Marshall, it's been a couple of hours. I got a couple of other things to talk about. The crypto stuff seems to be petering out, sort of.
Yeah, it is.
So I think I'm probably going to let you go for this one before I completely overload my viewers, if they haven't already been. But I'd certainly suggest, go ahead and make yourself a YouTube channel. Give it a shot. See what happens,
My time is so tricky, but,
I
maybe
hear you
I'll
there.
come on with you for a while, and then maybe if people are interested, I don't know. Because I got a lot of stories to tell.
Yeah. Well, like I say, thank you very much for being on. You
Thanks
always
for having me.
Bring a mind-blowing experience with you, so I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Maybe next time we'll talk about charts and stuff like that. But
Works
the basics
for me.
are important. Okay, cut me off and
have
be
a
an
good
asshole.
one, and we will no doubt talk again.
Okay, chat with you later, Bill. See you guys.
See you later. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Whew. As always, but just barely being able to comprehend it. Thank you, Johnny Arcade on YouTube, for saying good interview. The thing about Marshall and I is it's barely an interview at all. In advance, we happen to say, okay, well, let's talk about this, let's talk about that, but then it just goes every place, largely because Marshall knows what he's talking about on this more than I do. We just sit there and with my eyes boggling and my brain starting to fill up and almost explode, So, again, Marshall, thank you very much for being on. It was awesome, as always. So, to completely change tactics, and I did this on purpose because I knew this was going to be one of those mind-boggling things, I want to talk about something completely different. Now, I watch a lot of reactors. As people who watch me very much on this show know, I watch a lot of reactors, people who watch TV and videos and stuff like that and will react to them. I got into this in large measure because I discovered that there are millennials. Yeah, incredible wandering interview, Marshall. I discovered there are a lot of millennials, post-millennials, who have never seen movies that, I grew up with and that are today considered classics. The ones that blow me away, and there are lots of them out there, are the ones that have never seen any Star Wars movie before. I cannot imagine that because it's like Superman and Batman. It's part of the American public lexicon. If you know all these memes, you've seen all this stuff. There are all these sayings with relating to Star Wars, yet you've never seen it. So I got into watching them to some extent for that, and partly because it's a psychological thing for me, having to do with, the age and gender of them tend to be surrogates for my children at certain points, so it's kind of fun to think about, okay, this is what it would be like if I was watching with them. But the ones that I really am interested in right now, and there is almost nobody doing it, I would be very, very interested if more millennials, more post-millennials would watch Star Trek, the original series. Because I kind of get it. I get it. It's a tough watch. Not because the stories are bad. They're usually very good. Certainly Star Trek has a very good hit-and-miss ratio. But because we are now more removed in time and have been for some time, from Star Trek, the original series, to now than we were from the 1930s, 1940s Flash Gordon serials to when I first saw them in probably the 1970s. We are farther removed in time and farther removed in technology. It's just, it's a totally different world. And a lot of the times it will drag them out of the moment. They'll be watching the show and they'll see what you see behind me. Flashing lights and buttons and switches and knobs and things that they just can't comprehend now. It looks fake and phony to them. It isn't helped by the fact that, we've now got Blu-rays and, this was a show that was meant to be shown on crappy analog broadcast television that never had a very clear screen to begin with. You're seeing me in 60 frames in 1080p at 60 frames per second. And at the time of Star Trek The Next Generation, something like that, Star Trek the original series, something like that was never even on anyone's radar. And if it had been, no doubt they would have, if they'd ever thought that this was going to be seen this many years later with this kind of resolution, they would have done things very differently. You would still get some of the same problems. Science fiction never, ever, ever predicts the future correctly. It always gets it wrong. No exceptions. But the big conceit at the time that Star Trek, the original series, was going on was that we would have, their projection was, and it was nobody stupid thinking about this. A lot of people thought this. Isaac Asimov, one of the best and most prolific science fiction authors out there, they assumed that we would have a massive leap in generation of power, that nuclear power would lead to other massive generations in power. And what we actually got was massive revolutions in information technology. So while this seemed perfectly reasonable to somebody for whom a computer was the size of a small warehouse, it was not what we got. And the massive amount of power that they thought we were going to get was not what we got. So for people now watching this, it's tough. I get it. I can't pay my kids to watch Star Trek, the original series. So there are a pair of reactors on YouTube, the Gallifrey Gals, which consist of Paula Deming and Katrina Alysha. I know, having looked, that Paula Deming is at least an actress. I didn't do it, but I'll put a link to their YouTube channel below. And they're they've been reacting to Doctor Who, the new Doctor Who. And they're getting to the point where they're almost to the Day of the Doctor, the best Doctor Who episode ever made, period. And so in honor of that, they're going back and they're watching some original classic Who. And for some reason, I don't know why, they watched The City on the Edge of Forever from Star Trek, the original series. Now, for people who are younger, if you want to watch an episode of Star Trek, the original series, City on the Edge of Forever is one of the best ones you can watch because it doesn't have a lot of this. There is some at the beginning, the first 15 minutes, you get some of this. And alien planet-wise, you get stuff that today looks like a set, in 1080p and Blu-ray. It looks like a set. But the moment after that, it turns into a period piece in the 1930s, right? And the thing about a period piece is that doesn't age very much. New York City in 1930, if you do it right with the right costumes and all of that, it's going to look like New York City in the 1930s, even if you watch it 100 years from now. The technology of getting you this may have changed, but it's still going to look like the 1930s. So if you're going to watch Star Trek, the original series, it's a good one for that, because it won't drag you out of the moment as much. But B, it is, in my opinion, and the opinion of many people who have watched all of Star Trek, the franchise, it is, in my opinion, the best Star Trek episode ever written. This is partly because the brain behind it, the original brainchild, was Harlan Ellison, one of the best writers ever, period. There's a lot of backstory about how that episode got made. Long and the short of it is, all of the shenanigans that went on behind the scenes caused Harlan Ellison to hate Gene Roddenberry's guts, not just until Roddenberry died, but until Ellison himself died. He just hated his guts. And I won't go into all of the stuff that went into that because it gets very complex. There's a really good book about it. I've forgotten the name. I will look it up and put it in the description box. There's a very good book that Harlan Ellison wrote about it that includes multiple drafts of the script, so you can kind of see, okay, this is how it evolved and who wound up getting their hands on it and all that. Harlan Ellison was very pissed about it because you don't change Harlan Ellison's words. For him, his words are God. He thought he was going to have the ability to make all the revisions. He ultimately didn't, and hated Gene Roddenberry for literally the rest of Ellison's life. He hated Roddenberry. But all of that aside, it is still a great episode. For me, it encapsulates virtually everything about Star Trek. It is showing us and even practically talking directly to the audience in one of the scenes that must have had Gene Roddenberry's hands on it. It sounds just like his preachiness. But preaching about a better future, while at the same time having the drama be about very difficult decisions that have to be made under the circumstances they're in. That's just quintessentially Star Trek. And so if you're going to watch Star Trek, the original series, Paula and Katrina chose a really good one to watch. Paula and Katrina. I did a pause at the beginning of this in the live stream because I am going to pull this out as a clip. Your reaction afterwards was good in terms of what you talked about, and clearly how you reacted to the episode is basically the way everybody always reacts to it. It's just a great episode. But Katrina, you said something that I think is because you're young and you lack the experience to know the difference. Katrina had opined, that it was really great. We're seeing, in much of Star Trek, we see, predicting a bright future, a hopeful future. And then she went back and she says almost, it's really angering that we've gone back and done the same things. Katrina, we have not. This is the message I want to give to you. We have not gone back and done the same things. The problem is you have been raised as a millennial, post-millennial. I can't tell which. I can't tell anymore what kids' ages are. You have been raised in a culture that is artificially nihilistic. You have been raised in a culture in which decapitated baby heads, on-screen graphic torture is normal. You've been raised in a culture in which the press has gone and made a gigantic deal out of very small problems, like racism, like white supremacy, like Nazism. They say all of these things are really big problems. And I have to tell you, as somebody who lived from this time period, my first memory is the Mugatu from A Private Little War from Star Trek in 1967. Its original airing on TV. Things have gotten much, much better. When you look at wars, World War II, I don't even remember what the total is, but I mean, probably 100 million people died in that war. Civilians and soldiers alike. About 100 million, something like that. I'd have to get the exact figure. We have not had a war like that ever since. If you were to look at kind of a graph at how wars had gotten more and more costly in terms of people dying, it's this giant peak in World War II and then down to nothing. Even if you look at wars like Iraq, the most recent ones, or Afghanistan, or if you look even at Vietnam, we have not seen a war on that scale. We have not seen death on that scale ever since. That huge amount of people lost in World War II is so now ingrained, I think, in the human consciousness that it's something that we are not going to see again, at least not anytime soon. I don't know what conditions you could set up where the entire world would be at war and willing to kill that many people. And so when you look at war, it's gone way down. We've had a little bumps up and down here, but nothing. This is World War II. And after that, little bumps here, but nothing like World War II. In terms of warfare, we're becoming far more civilized, and there's every reason to think that it's going to get better. When we look at things like racism, okay, you have been sold a bill of goods. Racism in the 1960s was being able to say the N-word routinely Until the 1970s, even the mid-1970s, when I was growing up, and I went to a very exclusive prep school because my mother taught there, so we got free tuition, my sister and I. But I went to this very expensive prep school, and even then, the one black guy who was in our class was constantly referred to by the N-word. Now, very shortly after that, within a couple of 3 years, it was just verboten. Nobody spoke it ever again. I don't know anyone who has spoken that word in decades. Surely there are people, no doubt, there are people who do it, but most people do not speak that word. In terms of, the racism back then in the 1960s, there were still places where segregated water fountains were. Some white people actually believed that black people were inferior and disease carrying. I mean, that really happened in my lifetime. I remember it. Very young, but I remember that. When we look at today's racism, do we still have it? Yes. But was it anything like then? No, nothing like it. For race relations, for the most part, modern times are the best time to be any kind of racial minority in the United States. Absolutely. And this has not changed. This is a trend that has been going on. If you look at the number of people, you can't pay attention to the press. They're always giving you false information. Particularly when Trump was in office, they were always giving false information because they wanted to get him the hell out of office. And I speak to you as a libertarian. I did not really care. To me, Trump was just the 10th president of my lifetime. I did not see all that much difference about him, but the press hated his guts. And so they said, we have all this racism and stuff exploding under him. No, we didn't. If you look at, and I know, my city of Lincoln, Nebraska was once the home of the American Nazi Party, the headquarters of the American Nazi Party. And it was a joke by then because the headquarters of the American Nazi Party, I used to walk past it on my way to school from time to time, was a broken down, ramshackle POS house. And the president or head of the American Nazi Party was this old geezer who in his basement was churning out hate literature to a tiny number of people and ever decreasing. If you actually see a real Nazi Party rally, there's maybe a dozen or so people in their stupid little parade. It has been decreasing over my entire life. The number of people now who are actual racists compared to when Star Trek, the original series, was on, is very small in the United States. Very, very small. You want to get racist, go to China, right? They hate black people in general. That's real racism. We have seen it decreasing over my lifetime. There's every reason to believe that it's going to get better and better. And black people in the 1960s were just being able to move into things like doctors, lawyers, engineers. It was just impossible. That was just impossible. Today, it's very possible. If you have the capability, you can go on. If you're smart, if you can do those things, you can go on. How many black, Asian, etc.? My current MD, my current GP, is an East Indian woman. Clearly, we don't have that kind of racism right now. It has gotten much, much better, and there's every reason to believe that it's going to continue to get much better. Drugs, which, Katrina, I know you've spoken about in your videos. Drugs are still a problem, but they always will be as long as we continue to have prohibition. The problem with drugs, the real problem is the prohibition, because it creates gang warfare, it drives the price up, and it makes it much more difficult to get somebody the treatment that they need. You have to get government out of the equation. And so things have, the type of drugs, the amount of drugs, the way the drugs have been refined and all that has gotten much better refined and stuff like that in modern times compared to the 1960s. But the problem still remains. But if you got government the hell out of it, that would largely disappear as well. The drug abuse problems that you've talked about with people in your own life. It would be something where it's limited not to all of the illegal stuff going on. It's just how do we get them the help that they need, so that they can get sober, And technology, for God's sake, when I was born and when Star Trek was on, the computers that were behind all of this stuff that you see behind me, they really thought were going to be the size of about 4 decks in the center of the, big giant computer core inside the, the center part of the sausage section in the Enterprise. Now, hell, any one of these stations would be your phone, Computers used to be gigantic. Now they're tiny. They're going to get tinier even still. We are on the cusp of solving world hunger with 3D printing. We are on the cusp, essentially, of changing what it means to be human because of advancements in technology. And we just got off. I'm pulling this out of a clip to aim specifically at them because they would never see a comment of mine. When you look at the entirety of what we just talked about in my live stream, we're looking at a massive shift in finance that's going to change the world. You are right now in a time period that is better in the Western society than has ever been in the past. Women, for God's sake, women. On Star Trek, the original series, having Lieutenant Uhura on the bridge, a female black officer, was a damn big thing. At that time, did you have black officers? Probably there were a few. Most of them would be enlisted men, and sometimes they were mistreated. Black people did things like they were porters, for trains and things like that. They were really relegated to the back of the bus, even though they had for better part of a century had equal rights under the Constitution. There's still all this discrimination. And a black woman, that's a double threat, because women at that time on both sides, the end of the 1960s is where it started to change, but it didn't really change much until the 1980s. I have stories from people in my industry, IT, women who are older than I am, who have talked about how hard it was to get into IT because they were female. Today, at least 50% of the workforce in IT is female, if not more. So that has all changed. And a black female officer. I'm sure they had female officers, and when I'm talking about an officer, I mean somebody who would have had the training to be the leadership positions and stuff like that to make the big calls. Not, the listed people, not non-commissioned officers, but in this case, ensign, lieutenant, junior grade, lieutenant commander, captain, admirals, etc. Having a lieutenant, the 3rd grade up as an officer in that grade. You have ensign, you have lieutenant, junior grade, and lieutenant. 3 grades up, right? That was a big freaking deal. Having a female black officer shown on television, despite the fact she never really got a hell of a lot to do. But that was a big thing, such that when Nichelle Nichols was thinking about leaving the show, Dr. Martin Luther King himself said, no, you don't either. You got to stay there. Showing a black female officer is a huge deal. And at least one astronaut whose name escapes me was, in fact, inspired by Lieutenant Uhura being there. That was very forward-thinking and something that was impossible in the 1960s and is totally possible today and getting better all the time. We are headed into an optimistic future. We don't frack it up, which is entirely possible. We can frack it up. But if we don't, we are still headed into a very bright future. The nihilism that you guys see and experience in your entertainment is artificial. I always like to say, my late great acting guru, Dr. William Morgan, once said, theater is planned, rehearsed spontaneity. So when you see something on television, when you see decapitated baby heads in Star Trek Discovery, when you see beheadings in Star Trek Picard, when you see Ichab getting his eyeball ripped out graphically on TV, this is all planned, rehearsed spontaneity. It's not real. That stuff's not going on in the first world. In the Western world, that's not happening. When it happens, it is extraordinarily rare. This is planned, rehearsed spontaneity. And similarly, when you get into the press, scrolls by on my lower third every single time. Nothing you see in the press is real. And I know this because for 41 years, I have engaged in a very masochistic hobby of debunking every press story that I've ever seen. You guys can feel free. My other viewers can feel free. You can give me any press story that you like, and I will live here on a stream debunk it cold. I'll walk through and I'll show you how it isn't real. It is planned, rehearsed. Spontaneity is all theater. In real life, things are much, much better than you can possibly imagine. What we're fed is totally wrong. What you are fed is not accurate. We are not in the same position in the 1960s as we were then. We are completely different. It is a much, much better world now. And if we don't frack it up, we're going to get to a much better world still. So, when you think about that stuff, what Star Trek was saying then turned out to be accurate. We didn't kill ourselves in the Cold War. We could have, but we didn't. Kirk once said that we faced, at some point in the past, a crisis where we could have killed each other. But we found the wisdom to overcome that. And that's what happened. If we don't frack it up, if we find the wisdom, then we are headed in an extremely, extremely bright future. We have a bright future from when Star Trek, the original series, was on. So keep that in mind. When you're watching this, don't get upset. Things have changed dramatically from then to here, and it's going to change dramatically from here to when you die. Looking at my comments here on the YouTube side, let's see. TDG is saying First World issues Mae Jemison. Yes, Mae Jemison was the astronaut who was inspired by Lieutenant Uhura, who was told by Martin Luther King that as a black female officer, even if she just sat there and said, "Hailing frequencies open, sir," meant that they were showing something for black people that was totally revolutionary. Nobody was doing that back then. And yet today, it's a reality. You couldn't have a female, Mae Jemison, black female officer and an astronaut, for God's sake. We have gone into a very, very bright world, and you just have to know that all this stuff that you've been fed is nonsense. It's just nonsense. Yes, Marshall says we still have to get to "We're not going to kill today." There's a great line in Star Trek, the original series, in an episode that you should watch. God, name of which escapes me, but Kirk says that the first step in doing any of this is we have to say to ourselves, yes, we can be savages, but we're not going to kill today. And, to some extent, we have gotten to that, Marshall. Again, if you look at the sheer number of casualties in World War II versus what we have now, it's not that it isn't without its problems. It certainly is. But we are in a much better world than you can possibly imagine, Paula and Katrina. We are in a much better world. And I can only tell you this by virtue of having lived through some of the bad parts, having lived through, the threat of death by nuclear fire for the first half or more of my adult life. You don't have to worry about that. We are likely not going to have a nuclear war. And certainly if we do use nuclear weapons in some kind of conflict, it's not going to destroy the world like it did. We don't have thousands of nukes, two countries pointed at each other, that if used would make the planet uninhabitable to humans. Taste for Armageddon, Marshall is saying, yes, we're not going to kill today, is in Taste of Armageddon. A great line, by the way. To me, sums up what Roddenberry thought, in terms of Star Trek. Yes, we have our flaws, but we're going to say, no, we're not going to kill today. So that's basically what I have to say to Paula Deming and Katrina Alysha. When you look at this and you look at Star Trek, the original series, and you say, God, they were writing all of this hopeful future that never came true. No, trust me, a lot of it has come true. A lot of it has come true. Not everything, but a lot of it has, in fact, come true. And what you're being fed, what you're being told by your nihilistic culture, by your nihilistic lying press, isn't true. In the first world, We don't have those problems. Yeah, you can get out the second and third world where it's horrible. But here in the first world, in the Western society, things are better now than they have ever been at any point in the past. It's a better world right now. And if we don't frack it up, which we can, it's still going to get better. That's the piece that I have to... that's the piece where I have to pull out as a clip, which is why I paused there. I do have some Star Trek news. It's relatively minor. Oh, God. And I'm not going to pull this out as a clip, but we're hearing noises that Strange New Worlds is going to bring characters back from Star Trek Enterprise. Why? Because you know, from having watched Picard, that they're only going to screw them up. You know, they made Harry Mudd, who was in Star Trek the original series a lovable rogue. The worst thing that he did was kidnap, to have his androids kidnap, you know, an entire starship, but he wasn't some kind of murderer. Now he's a mass murderer. You know, they screwed him up. They turned Tribbles from, you know, comic relief more than anything else, where you didn't think too hard about the ethical implications of having this really horrifying number of animals that can breed and kill everything just due to numbers, into something horrible. They have, you know, taken Picard and that entire show and made it into something awful so that they can make a commentary about modern times. Here's the thing, Star Trek writers. Star Trek has, in fact, always dealt with current political issues. You can go back. One of the best examples is my first memory, A Private Little War, which was an allegory for the Vietnam War. And the thing was, they presented that a little more balanced. And it was not the Federation that was going through that problem. It was another planet, but with people we got emotionally attached to. Good writing. We could get emotionally attached to people we only saw 1 week. So they've not been that ham-fisted about it as they have been in Star Trek Picard. Certainly they've not had the nihilism that runs through Star Trek Picard. And, you know, you look at some of the other characters. I have a longtime viewer for whom Star Trek Voyager is her favorite Star Trek show. Not mine, but I get why she has it. For her, she grew up with that, and for having 7 of 9 be a completely different character, you know, really, really bothered her. Made her cry, you know, still something that she has problems with. Just what they did with 7 of 9. If they take these characters from Star Trek Enterprise, they will screw them up. They will make them into something that they were not at the time of the episode was aired. You know, T'Pol could conceivably still be around at the time, and they've talked about bringing her in. Trust me, she will not be the same character. She will be something horrible. You know, she'll be something nihilistic, something that is not Star Trek and is not her. They have taken everything, and any time that they have the opportunity to tie something back to any prior incarnation of Star Trek, they have fracked it up. They have screwed up all the characters, made them something awful. This will be absolutely no different. Marshall says, original series realized there's some answers to problems that's almost as bad as the problem being solved. Yes, yeah. So they're going to bring these characters back. And the thing about it is you have to ask yourself, why? Right? When you take a look at Star Trek The Next Generation, a complete, huge chance for Paramount Pictures for a number of reasons, but a giant chance for them to take. Star Trek The Next Generation stood on its own 2 feet. It was in the same universe as Star Trek the original series in all the films. It was in that universe, but very damned rarely did they rely on grabbing a character out of Star Trek the original series. They did it twice in the first season, one of which was on point. They had Dr. McCoy very, very old for one brief scene in Star Trek The Next Generation. There was kind of a passing of the torch, and we were okay with that one. That was fine. Then they brought up the Enterprise in an episode, The Naked Now, which was essentially stealing from the Star Trek episode, The Naked Time, and they shouldn't have made that episode to begin with, and they should never have mentioned the Enterprise. Didn't do it again, I think, until they brought Scotty in. And when they brought him in, they did two things. They did not say, oh, this set is stupid by modern standards. No, they reproduced the set. They were being faithful to that. And they didn't take Scotty and make him into something that he wasn't. They took Scotty and they said, okay, here's a guy who was brilliant in his era. Now he's out of his depth. How does that work? But they didn't make him into something totally unrecognizable, right? And when they had Spock on for the two-parter. It was still Spock. It was an older Spock. It was a Spock with different goals than the Spock that we'd seen before, but it was still the character of Spock. They did not frack him up. They did not screw him over. Even Kirk in Star Trek Generations, his death was stupid. It was a poor death for someone like Kirk. He should have gone out in a much more heroic fashion, frankly. But the character, when we saw him, was still James T. Kirk. They did not alter him to be something that he wasn't. And those are the only few times that they referenced that cast at all. They had Sarek in there one time, who Spock's father, same actor. And he had a different character arc, which was fine. But they didn't take all of that, and they weren't relying on it. Right? It was very, very unusual. Half a second, I have to turn off an alarm that's going off here. Getting too close to midnight. I have an alarm that goes off every time that my medications are about time for me to take them. They didn't rely on those characters. They stood on their own 2 feet. They didn't have to rely on those characters because the show was good enough to stand on its own 2 feet. And even when you get into Voyager, Deep Space Nine, Star Trek Enterprise, they did not generally rely. They had the same mythos. They were in the same universe, but they didn't rely on each other. Occasionally, Voyager had one crossover with Deep Space Nine. Star Trek, the original series, I think, had one. Star Trek The Next Generation, rather. But they didn't rely on each other. They didn't have to pull characters out. So why does Star Trek in modern times have to do that? Well, two things. The people doing it have zero imagination. They are nihilists who think that Kling orcs make sense, that decapitated babies make sense, that yanking someone's eyeball out on screen makes sense. They are nihilists. And secondarily, they have very, very damn little of their own creativity. The only thing they can do is say, okay, well, let's take these characters beloved characters, and maybe that'll draw in some of the audience for those shows, and that'll put us over the top. That's the only reason. These shows, even Star Trek Discovery, which went 1,000 fracking years into the future, still had to have an episode with Spock in it. They don't have the creativity to come up with their own stuff. They must rely on prior incarnations, or else they have nothing. They just don't have any level of creativity. Just that simple. Let's see. Marshall says the appearance of the original series crew were a true gift in Next Generation. They did it extremely well, playing off of the known characteristics perfectly. They were real and consistent with history. Yes, they were consistent with the history of those characters, and they were extraordinarily sparingly used. And they didn't need to be used, because that was a show that was still made by people who had their own imaginations and would rely on their own imaginations and their own characters. They didn't need to bring these others in. When they brought them in, it was not for fan service, really. They weren't saying, oh, we got to bring them in because otherwise we'll have no ratings, or we got to bring them in because we can't figure out how to do our own stuff. It was, as Marshall says, kind of a gift. When Scotty appeared, that was a gift. And he had a story arc that made sense and was consistent with the character we'd seen before. It was all consistency. And this is taking characters that we know and love and fracking them up. And if they take these ones from Enterprise, they're going to frack them up just as well. If you think Strange New Worlds is going to be better than the other two, you're an idiot. Scotty said in one of the original series episodes, Fool me once, shame on me. That's Discovery. Fool me twice, shame on you. That's Picard. I've got to add, fool me thrice, and I am a complete idiot. If you think that Star Trek under Kurtzman is somehow going to be better the third time around, you have lost your freaking mind. They don't know how to do this. And the fact that they're talking about bringing up characters from Star Trek Enterprise to grab the millennials or whichever, because they were watching that show back then. Complete lack of imagination and complete lack of faith in their ability to do their own characters. Not that they're doing their own characters anyway. They're stealing from a pilot that never sold. No imagination whatsoever. Consistent with what we see in Hollywood generally. Zero imagination. Rehashing, Charlie's Angels. Charlie's Angels movies are, to me, the ultimate in complete lack of imagination. That was a 1970s show, mediocre at best. The sole thing going for it was 3 hot chicks. And we have had 2 different remakes. I can't call those reboots. 2 different reboots of those. Why? If you're reduced to that, if that's what you're going to, you're going to the, people who are younger than me or older than me don't even know what Charlie's Angels was. If you're going to a studio and said, hi, we'd like to make this, 50-year-old show, a remake of it, that doesn't even have any name recognition. What? You see this in Star Trek, complete lack of anything like originality. They don't believe that they can work on their own, so they have to bring in characters from the past. And then they frack them up. They turn them into totally different characters. TGG says the way Deep Space Nine did the crossover with the original series is very much in keeping with the spirit of Star Trek. Yeah, they did one crossover, and that was to some extent fan service. It was some extent fan service, but it still made sense within the context, and they weren't screwing with things. Let's not forget the reappearance of Carl in Discovery. Yes, that's not how the Guardian of Forever works. And again, they couldn't just rely on their own stuff. They had to steal from what is arguably the best Star Trek episode in the entire history of the franchise, movies included. Arguably, that is the very best one ever made. And so they had to steal from that. They couldn't just do their own ideas. They had to steal that one. DDG says, true reason for anything done today is the money. Yes, I keep worrying about this. If we're doing nothing but reboots and remakes of other stuff now, because really that's what we're doing, 20 years from now, what are they going to do? They'll have nothing that was creative now to reboot. I guess they'll be rebooting the reboots of the reboots. Total lack of imagination. And as you say, TDG, the money, if there is any involved. Okay, we're getting up to 11:37 in my time. Very, very quickly, I will go through. I'm not going to do it with the same amount of time. It's very quickly. I'm going to have me a little bit of a woke report. It is day 343 of unceasing rioting, looting, robbery, armed robbery, assault with a deadly weapon, and the murder of innocents in the United States. Some things that have been going on with the woke this week. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on them, just some of the big things, because it's unceasing. Project Veritas has been banned from Twitter for having temerity to tweet about freelance reporter Jesse Hicks illegally impersonating Project Veritas staff in order to dig up dirt on them. That is illegal. He is being taken to court. And yet, despite the fact that all Project Veritas was doing was reporting the fact that they were doing this, that this person they had caught red-handed, well, the fascists over at Twitter canceled them. Got rid of them, kicked them off the platform. Cancel culture fascists are now coming for Snow White. I guess because the portrayal of the seven dwarves isn't in line with modern woke politics? Or maybe it's the fact that Snow White is white? I don't know. New York City schools cancel culture fascists have canceled Columbus Day. The word now is that Columbus was a horrible person and introduced all kinds of diseases and is responsible for the genocide of the American Indian. Guys, it is always far, far more complex than that. Columbus Day is, in fact, worth celebrating, and you're just cancel culture fascists who don't understand history. You morons. Cancel culture fascists have come for Jeopardy contestant Kelly Donahue because he, in an answer that was correct to a question, referred to the virus by something that I cannot say without YouTube banning this video, closing my account, or deranking my channel even more than it already has. I will have you know that it is a common term when you get out of the United States. One of my oldest friends is a Canadian, and he uses this term. It is considered racist in the United States. Oh, let's see. He's also being canceled. Excuse me. He's also being canceled for making an innocuous gesture that means okay in many Western cultures, yet I cannot show it on YouTube, without them banning the video, closing my account, or deranking my channel any more than it already is. It is a very common one, but is now considered racist. The cancel culture fascists have come for streamer Disguised Toast, that's a username, for having the temerity to have a sense of humor. Always remember and never forget, the woke have no sense of humor. They are, in fact, destroying comedy completely. They have zero sense of humor. If someone shows a sense of humor, they will cancel you if they all possibly can. That is my woke report for tonight. Didn't go through the whole spiel. So, my back's hurting. My brain has already been hurting for the last hour or so since we let Marshall go. Thanks again very much to Marshall Presnell for being on. One of my oldest friends, pseudo-producer on this show, gets a half credit in the end credits by virtue of being one of the Magatus that I am crediting. So I think that's all I had to say about that. I think that's all I have to say about that. I would love to keep the conversation going, so please do leave your comments, questions, and nasty remarks, and I'll do my best to respond to you. And, of course, subscribe, like, hit the notification bell, share me on social media. That's how I grow. I would also mention, by the way, that last night I did start a Patreon account. I had been avoiding this because Patreon is among the woke cancel culture and will kick people off if you don't like your content. However, I cannot deny that regardless or not, Patreon does in fact have a ton of visibility. If you're interested in supporting me, you can go to patreon.com/SYLRanch or to my main website, sylranch.tv/donate. You'll see all of the ways you can donate there. So, thanks for watching this episode of Tales from SYL Ranch, where everyone is entitled to my opinion. And I'm Bill Stone.
Ultimate power in this world has always been one simple thing: the control and manipulation of minds.